God Tree is currently processing everything that he missed out on for the past 3 years of his slumber. Divine Flower has been giving him the rundown of their affairs in the absence of a true leader. During the time when he was asleep, a lot of humans have been stepping out of line. Factions had rebelled, some powerhouses had been clamoring, and some had been trying to explore the Misty Mountain again. From their perspective, God Tree had already fallen in the battle against the Sea Kings. As for the humans who had signed a sacrificial pact, some were still obeying the treaty, but some were just watching and waiting for Misty Mountain's downfall. Overall, the prestige and fear that they had deteriorated a lot. UZU's response to that was simple. They just had to show their power to the world again. On the outskirts of Misty Mountain, some poachers have been hunting beasts down. They were targeting entry-level creatures that could sell for quite a bit of money in the market. One of the poachers didn't like hunting in this place because of its proximity to Misty Mountain. But his partner was confident that there was nothing to worry about. He thought that hunting and killing a beast from that forbidden area wouldn't be impossible. When a roar echoed out of the concealed woods, the poacher's conceit would be tested. White Tiger had arrived alongside the Tiger tribe and a few more backups. The poachers immediately abandoned their plan to fight back and drop everything to run. It wasn't just the beasts that were the problem, it was also the huge amount of mist encroaching on the area. White Tiger and his gang weren't even paying attention to those small fries. Xiao Lan had partnered with White Tiger as a tracker. Their destination was 300 kilometers due east. The Realm of Steel, a region filled with living metals, dubbed as a special forbidden region. God Tree was planning to conquer that place to announce his return. This was Xiao Lan's first proper mission. No matter what happened, she would see to it that they succeeded. White Tiger had also learned a few more words in the human tongue. He promised to protect Xiao Lan properly. Meanwhile, a Heaven's Pride conference was currently underway. Powerhouses had gathered to discuss the resurgence of activity in the Misty Mountain. One of them thought that they had outgrown the need to fear God Tree with all the progress humanity had made. They thought that Misty Mountain had fallen behind with the current era. The old man spewing that nonsense was shut down by another member of the conference. He thought that Misty Mountain might have stayed silent, but they hadn't declined. With the lack of information, overconfidence would only bring harm to humanity. The pink-haired pretty girl agreed that they needed to use their brains more and stop using muscles and ego. Dumbass Mustache was infuriated, but he couldn't think of a response. All they knew was that God Tree was gunning for the Realm of Steel and the item there. If Misty Mountain got a hold of that item, it would be disastrous for humans. Not to mention, humanity's plan to conquer that land would go to waste. Even if they tried to interfere, their chances of succeeding would be very low. A familiar voice coming out of nowhere confirmed everything they had been saying. Lin Ziyi, the space-manipulating prodigy, had entered the conference. She announced that she had come in the name of God Tree, with the order for humans to not interfere or suffer the consequences. Dumbass Mustache instantly responded with his fists. He put his whole power behind that punch without thinking of the consequences. But physical attacks were useless against Lin Ziyi's spatial power. Besides, she wasn't done talking yet. Dumbass Mustache was flabbergasted that his attack had landed. The other conference members admonished him for moving all willy-nilly. When asked to elaborate, Lin Ziyi explained that the God Tree was not moving for his own sake, and that humanity shouldn't waste their lives by going against him. Also, there would be a day when even weak humans would be needed. Even someone as strong as the God Tree would need the help of humans. That's kind of hard to imagine for them. That's all Lin Ziyi had to say. The conference can decide what they want to do. Before exiting, Suzy, someone who used to be in the same military district as Lin Ziyi, stopped her. Stussy wanted to know why a prodigy would betray humanity and joy in Misty Mountain. But she would have to ponder the answer to that by herself. Lin Ziyi finally left the room with her space manipulation, leaving everyone silent. Members of the Heaven's Pride Conference were visibly frustrated. They had failed to get rid of the mutant tree, and he had even brazenly sent someone to give a command. Ziyi's portal brought her back to home base. She notified the god tree that the message had been delivered. He was quite pleased, now that they had a user who had mastered the power of space in their ranks. Things had gotten so much more convenient with this prodigy's addition. Her next mission would be to go to the 10 Nations Alliance where Alicia needs help. Ziyi was wholly receptive to her master's orders, not questioning them one bit. They had already missed the best opportunity to subdue the 10 Nations Alliance for the past 3 years. They couldn't miss it again this time. The nation in question is located on the other side of the world. Their priestess, Alicia, is currently pondering the state of the world. A servant notified her that everything was ready. It was time for her to enter the fray. The beautiful priestess had a determined look in her eyes. She proceeded to stand before a man sitting on a lavish throne. The monarch looked at her smugly with her blue ball baton and proceeded to show his indignation. Let's turn our attention to the realm of steel. White Tiger, Xiao Lan, a giant tarantula, and the kings of 3 tiger tribes. Just looking at the landscape would send a shiver down anyone's spine. Qinggang has also arrived through a different channel. He confirmed that every piece of debris in this place is living metal. The tiger tribes steadily march forward, vigilant of their surroundings. In a dark cavern, 2 humanoid faces observed their march. These 2 were up to no good. They intend to take advantage of the chaos to snatch an item away. It turns out that they're a pair of mutated beasts with humanoid faces. One is a spider and the other one is some sort of wolf.
Disgusting!
Misty Mountain forces reached the heart of the realm, and an earthquake stopped their advance. A solid golden hand emerged from the cliffs. A golem made of solid steel surfaced completely. This golem is named Black Gold, a transcendent third-order creature. White Tiger roared while Xiao Lan warned their troops to be careful. Black Gold unleashed a grating metallic sound and summoned little living metal critters from the ground. Black Gold was using its roar to wake the other dormant metals up. With its solid golden hand, it could control where the critters would go. So, the strat was simple. Get rid of the Black Gold and the fight will be as good as over. For now, the lesser beasts will be in charge of dealing with the critters. Dark Tiger Wuhan has set his sights on the small fries with a roaring sphere. White Tiger and Xiao Lan will take on the big boss. Their opening attack was a spiritually charged full-body collision. It successfully pierced through Black Gold's solid body, making it buckle and squirm. Getting your chest blown out would certainly bring any being down. White Tiger's head was concussed with lumps, but it was worth it. Or it would have been if they finished off the job. But Black Gold was already back up and hitting them with the golden fist. Xiao Lan assured White Tiger with her defense, so he would focus on offense. Every troop watched the defensive spell in awe, including the nameless 5th Tiger King and the 2nd Tiger King, Blood Tiger. Just as everyone was getting into the groove, another transcendent 3rd order being emerged, the much bigger Bronze. They're battling against giants, 2 to be exact. Standing together, these lumps of living metal looked unbeatable. The humanoids weren't expecting that the 2 masters of the realm of steel would show up. Wuhan didn't falter and unleash another roaring sphere. It pierced Bronze right in its chest hole. There was a clean hit that should have been fatal, but the wound started healing itself in just a few seconds. Fellas, if there's a hole, there's a way. Wuhan wasn't discouraged by that. He just summoned his clone and primed a double roaring sphere. This time, it took out one of Bronze's limbs. Just like before, the wounds started fusing together. It's basically high-speed regeneration on steroids. But Wuhan's attacks possess the darkness element and its corrosive property. Bronze is having a hard time getting its arm back now. Meanwhile, White Tiger and Xiao Lan have been expertly flying circles all over Black Gold. When an opening presented itself, they dove in. Within the point-blank range, he opened his heavenly eye. A beam of pure spiritual power ravaged Black Gold's head. It took out half of the giant's face easily. Shi Yaolan was quite pleased with White Tiger's new technique. It was extremely destructive, but it was also out of control. White Tiger moved his head slightly and almost wiped out their own troops. Shi Yaolan had to drop kick him just to stop the beam of energy. They can't afford to waste more time. They must finish these metalheads in one go. Shi Yaolan opened her eyes of treasure to peer through the enemy. She detected that the core of black gold is in its shoulder, and that's where they should focus fire. The corrosion steadily infected bronze to a dangerous degree. Wu Hong was just a fierce tiger going up against a giant, but he had the upper hand. He had been dominant to the point of considering his job done. White Tiger wasn't slacking either, using his powerful energy beams in conjunction with the Heavenly Eye. The force behind that attack was so relentless that it eventually dismembered black gold. Just like that, the two masters of this realm lined up in what looked like a defeat. The humanoids think that the win hasn't been secured though. Bronze and black gold are down, but the metal critters are still active. They've been increasing in number instead. That must mean that the one giving the attack signal is not those two giants, but the one that's slumbering even deeper within this bizarre land. The tricky humanoids think that this can be the perfect opportunity for their plan. They can snatch the bronze giant to the tunnel and shift to another continent. Locked with their absurd plan, the humanoids made their move. They haven't gotten far yet, but Qinggong already sensed their presence. He commanded the metal ground to grab a hold of the humanoids. Qinggong even gagged them with metal bindings. Interrogation would have to wait though. Another earthquake has struck the land. This time it was bigger and more intense, shifting the topography of the realm. Qinggong watched as the body of the mountain ruptured. A face that was as big as bronze and black gold combined rose to the surface. Its ancient molten body quickly followed. No matter what angle you look at, no matter how you spin it, this monster was simply too big. Its ancient guttural roar shook the lands with metallic resonance. The humanoids know this monster as the primogenitor of steel. Qinggong mistakenly heard it as primogenitor of Annis though. He's a man of culture. Members of the tiger tribe were the first to shake their fear and take action. White Tiger and Wu Hong took to the skies to go eye to eye with the primogenitor. Both of their warring spheres with pure energies were unleashed, and both failed to even make a shallow dent, bouncing off the monster's molten frame. The smoke cleared and no damage was done. That shocked and scared the black and white tigers. Shi Yaolan assessed that this enemy is on a completely different playing field. They tried their best and failed. Now it's time for primogenitor's revenge. Shi Yaolan yelled at the troops to retreat, while molten beams sought to destroy them. Wu Hong and White Tiger braced themselves and managed to avoid the brunt of the attack. But the troops on the floor weren't as fast to react. That attack left a massive ditch slicing the realm of steel in half. Now the Beast Army is having doubts about whether they could even win. Shi Yaolan attempted to lift their morale by ordering everyone to take turns depleting the primogenitor's power. Without spirit power, that giant is just a useless piece of metal. It was a decent plan, but they could just forget about it and retreat. Now that God Tree himself has arrived, he will finish the job by himself. Shi Yaolan looked behind her and laid eyes upon their glorious master. It's her first time seeing him up close, active, and personal. Before jumping into action, Yu Ziyu took the time to praise her for her bravery. She immediately blushed and held that compliment close to her heart. God Tree's roots twisted and turned, lifting him to the primogenitor's level. He looked the monster in its freaky eyes and asked if it was the master of this place. Primo responded with a very rude punch. No matter how much force was behind that strike, it was easily neutralized. Primo was flabbergasted that just a few pieces of roots were able to stop the land-shattering punch. Yu Ziyu admitted how bad this giant's temper was. Trash-talking made it a lot worse. Primo's rage could be felt from the movement of the living metal critters. At first, it looked like they were clamoring to escape. But upon closer look, they were heading to one place. Countless metallic critters were fusing and attaching themselves to the primogenitor. Not only that, but even the ground everyone was standing on was turning into pure metal. Yuziyu seemed unbothered by all of that though. He just casually watched as the monster became even bigger than before. Primo also started posing as if he was about to unleash a finisher. Blades of steel started poking out of the monster and the ground, all of them targeting God Tree. White Tiger and Xiao Lan came closer to lend assistance as she activated her eyes of treasure. She spotted the core of the monster in an incredibly obvious place. Xiao Lan shouted at God Tree that the enemy's core was at the level of its neck. He didn't know that the kid that Thorn saved possessed such a special ability. From the core of Primo comes another one of those molten beams. Yuziyu didn't even bother to dodge or move.
He's just standing there, menacingly.
He tanked all the molten energy like it was just a warm shower. The aftermath was catastrophic. Primo watched as the smoke subsided. White Tiger and Xiao Lan felt their hearts drop. They knew that Primo's attack was no joke, but there's no need to be in a hurry to mourn their master yet. His lower body has been raised, but that's just one of his offshoot forms. What remains of his frame slowly flew towards the core slot of the main body. Primo panicked and tried to stop the assimilation, but he was thwarted by the draconic root. Yuziyu ate an attack, but it's his turn now. His main body chomped down, absorbing the core. The gigantic frame of the God Tree started shifting in place. Humanoid limbs started emerging from either side. Everyone could not take their eyes off the change that was happening. A monstrous head cleared out of the smoke. God Tree's combat form has been completed, and it was glorious. It dwarfed the primogenitor of steel by a long shot. Now it's time for a proper second round. The tables have turned, and God Tree now holds all the advantages. Primo wasn't just going to lie down and die though. He sprouted some blazing tendrils from his back. Those tendrils then headed straight for God Tree's body. He just looked at it for a second. Nan dismissed it like it was nothing. Yuzi responded with tendrils of his own. His were crimson and supercharged by heavenly thunder. Those vines easily bounced off the blazing tendrils, pushing their way forward. They took hold of the primogenitor's body, making it roar in pain. But that's not all. Yuzi plans to follow the binding up with some thunder control to spark things up. Now that's a real roar of electrifying pain. Primo is not having a good time at all. In an attempt to even the scales just a little bit, the giant metal head tried to sneak in another molten beam. God Tree stood his ground and pulled up a simple barrier, just to flex that he was untouchable. Tank one attack, dish out one of your own. God Tree was so dominant that he could afford to take it easy, and just summon a ball of pure thunder with a terrifying voltage level. He praised the primogenitor for reaching such a high point in its biological state, but everything that Primo has will now be God Tree's to conquer. Yuzi rushed in and used the Thunderball that he made as a melee weapon to increase the disrespect. It tore through Primo's seemingly invincible frame, exploding out into the other side. Cries of excruciating pain, a war cry, and everything else in between echoed throughout the land. God Tree used his thunder to dig through Primo's core, the elemental heart. It's a precious treasure that can transform other elements into metal. He promised to the master of this realm that he'll make good use of the heart. Together with this core, the primogenitor of steel, and just live inside God Tree's body as a resource. Taking the elemental heart out of the big boss took the life out of its entire body. The seemingly invincible giant has fallen with no chance of getting back up. The tigers roared and every beast cheered in celebration. Seeing how God Tree defeated the master of the realm so easily horrified the humanoids. They were actually such fools for thinking of snatching something from the hands of a true monster. If you asked everyone in this place to describe God Tree, they would answer that he's incredibly powerful. Now that the mission was accomplished, it's time to go back to Misty Mountain. Every notable beast that they encounter along the way has been neatly bound and dragged all the way to their territory. They conquered the realm of steel and obtained the elemental heart. Shingon also captured a huge number of beasts. Yuzi wonders what to do with the tricky humanoids. The grotesque beings knew their place and immediately pleaded their loyalty. God Tree doesn't want to accept some evil schemers so easily though. But the humanoids seem sincere in saying that they would redeem themselves. Since Yuzi is creating a suppression cave to lock up disobedient humans and beasts, these humanoids can be the first guards as long as they remember where they stand. For this chance, they were extremely grateful. They also captured a rainbow deer, a legendary creature. God Tree turns the forgotten white crane, entrusting the legendary creature to the bird. A single tear came out of his eye. He really thought that we had forgotten about him. The next one is a lightning rat at the third order of transcendence.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's Pikachu!
It's Clefairy!
It's a fast rat with thunderously destructive abilities. Its attribute panel doesn't look too bad. There's a substantial number of rats in Misty Mountain, but the lightning rat was built different. Lung Fum will be in charge of nurturing this newest addition to the team. Next is handling God Tree's own matters. He obtained an additional 5 million evolution points in a single excursion. After upgrading his innate talents, it's time to turn his attention to something else. The progress bar of instantaneous time stop has climbed from 53% to 92%. Just a bit more, and this ability will be fully unlocked. Next is the elemental heart of the primogenitor. It would take a while to devour this core. The metal core is the core of living elementals. Going by logic, God Tree should be considered a wood elemental. That implies the existence of other elementals such as fire, wind, and everything else in this world. Either Yuzi is that you? Yuzi wants to make it his mission to absorb them all when the time comes. For now, the elemental heart of the primogenitor of steel will be added to his arsenal first. After doing so, he orders Ninetales to fetch his tree core. Ninetales has been keeping this elemental core full of vitality the whole time. She has been in charge of safekeeping this thing, but now God Tree can finally let it assimilate with the metal core. The fusing of two powerful energy sources is naturally quite intense. When all is said and done, the air is different, and so is the ground. The topography surrounding him has been altered significantly. He formally obtains the ability to assimilate, nurture, and devour metal elementals. These new abilities even turn the ground into metal after assimilation. The most fascinating one is the devouring ability. He intends to conduct some thorough research on that one. There are literally tons of metals in the realm of steel, but not all of them are useful. For now, Ninetales needs to pass down an order to look out for distinct metals for collection. She also takes the chance to inform her master that the Federation has sent Shi Yaoqing on a crusade against the White Dragon. Yuzi understands he wants Ninetales to join forces with Demon Cow to provide some assistance. On the other side of the continent, the White Cave has become a lair for some fearsome beasts. Chief among them is the infamous White Dragon. It's currently engaging in an all-out war against transcendent humans. A familiar centipede's spiritual pet has joined the fray. It bites down on the White Dragon's body and delivers some excruciating pain. That only lasts for a few seconds, as the dragon has plenty of tools to deal with pests. Shi Yaoqing has to come to the rescue of her pet with the use of inferno butterflies. She's become strong to the point of taking a chunk out of a dragon's flesh with her flames. White Jade Elephant has also made a surprising appearance. He is practically bruising his way through the dragon with sheer force. The elephant has always been very strong, but the enemies are a lot faster, and the black flames that hit him out of nowhere hurt like hell. The initial clash between the opposing sides is relatively equal for now, but the appearance of a black firefox might just change that. According to their research, beasts from the White Cave have always been white too.
What do you mean by that?
It's the first time that a different type of beast has reared its ugly head. The battlefield is busy and the Dark Assembly is observing quietly. By the looks of it, they might need to take action very soon. Their chairwoman Shi Yaoling hasn't given the order yet. Taking action at the wrong time carries the risk of exposing her. While they are watching the situation closely, some uninvited presences make themselves known. Dobman senses two extremely strong spiritual powers closing in. The chairwoman's trusted butler turns around and has some familiar beastly features. Nine Tails and Demon Cow have finally entered the fray. Two powerful beasts face two outstanding specimens of human-beast genetics. The parties just looked at each other for a little bit. Dogman decided to break the silence by threatening to draw his blade. The vampire butler told him to settle down, since they were on the same side as the beasts of Misty Mountain. Nine Tails asked for the rundown of the situation and Butler admitted that it's not good. The human powerhouses are severely outclassed, and the Flame Empress can't go all out. Moreover, there are signs of a few beasts observing in the dark. Their chairwoman is trying to play it slow, but it's getting a lot harder. It was rare to see Shi Yaoqing in such a perilous state. The mutated humans might be limited in what they can do, but the beasts aren't. The Flame Princess's scorching attacks were not quite as hard as she'd like. White Dragon has been going on a tear, making Shi Yaoqing contort her body just to avoid getting blasted. Dodging one attack opened her up to the jaws of another. The enemy's coordination was just too good. For a moment, the Flame Empress could practically see her cruel fate. Even the incompetent humans saw that. But the one that actually managed to save her in clutch time was Demon Cow and his battle axe. It was a painful swing, making the Firefox grimace in pain. Shi Yaoqing rejoiced now that some adequate allies had finally arrived. It's a gigantic improvement compared to his current human troops. Demon Cow immediately followed his assault with Gravity Field. Focused on the tip of his battle axe, the gravity made his attacks extra sharp and heavy. Nine Tails came up to the so-called human powerhouses and told them to get out since this place was out of their pay grade. Misty Mountain didn't come here to babysit humans. They came here to collect the corpse of a dragon. White Dragon roared in rage after hearing that bold statement. It summoned a burly white ape full of exploding strength. There's also the white snow fox coming out of its burrow. Just as Shi Yaoqing thought, there are indeed enemies hiding in the dark. It's the forces of the White Cave versus the human beast impromptu army. Neither of the two opposing parties was losing in the battle of morale and fierceness. Far from this chaos, Misty Mountain has been having a very pleasant sunny day. Praying Mantis has been summoned by the God Tree for a serious matter. As far as UZU knows, this guy has been a great partner to Sparky. Praying Mantis was proud to admit that. They've been fighting together for a long time and will succeed the Mantis army in the future. He's been provided with life essences and high-grade resources, but 3 years have passed and he's still stuck on the second order. At the rate of his development, he might not have the qualification to fight alongside Sparky anymore. God Tree has a solution for that. It entails the ingestion of a void worm that has been feeding on its tree root that eventually mutated. Praying Mantis can choose to consume it with the prospect of becoming a lot stronger, or becoming the worm's puppet until death. Mantis did not even hesitate to answer that he was willing to take the risk. Rather than dying as a weakling, he'd rather go down as a powerhouse. UZU was pleased with that gumption and tossed the void worm in his underling's direction. As soon as it entered his system, a pain that he'd never felt before racked his entire body. God Tree watched in silence, ready for whatever outcome this yields. The void worm assimilation awakened the mantis' innate talent and emitted a blinding light to the heavens. Divine Flower watched what was happening in the distance with worry. The little guy was practically going Super Saiyan, but he was green. Divine Flower became extremely worried at the sight of her friend. Mantis looked as though he had lost control of his actions and lunged in to attack the big boss. God Tree just chose to block while assessing whether the little guy failed or not. Based on the crazed screams and reckless attacks, evidence points to insanity. Uzu had enough of those silly attacks that didn't even scratch his body and grabbed Mantis. It was regretful, and the only thing he could bestow the little guy with was a painless death. Divine Flower could not just stand idly while a friend was about to get executed. She was right to interrupt as Mantis was still fighting the Void Worm's influence while screaming God Tree's name. Thankfully, Uzu listened. His grip was loosened by the explosion of newfound energy. It was so impactful that even Bald Head was hit with stray debris to the face. The Mantis that's been stuck has finally taken the leap to the third order of transcendence. Seeing a void-like form, Uzu was certain that the experiment was a success. That blade looks a lot like a video game skin for a knife, but its colorful look is an indication of just how lethal it could really be. Slashing the air left a dimensional rift in the space. That's a feat that only a few powerhouses are capable of. It's the fabled Void Blade. God Tree has now agreed that Mantis is now qualified to fight alongside Sparky. He will also be bestowed with a different name. From now on, he will be called Z Leon on account of his purple sickles. This success opens up the possibility of nurturing even more beasts that possess the power of Void in the future. Looking inside, God Tree analyzed his absolute evolution ability. Based on cognition, he can change his biological form, an ability he got from devouring the King of the Seven Seas. The first form he tried out was that of a fox. This form can separate from the main body freely. I've also possessed his elemental wind mastery to utilize for attacks. The destruction stored inside the little body was quite impressive. This was a totally different experience compared to his human form. His biology and even abilities have changed. That's the essence of absolute evolution. It's very similar to the 72 transformations of Sun Wukong, but the spirit power usage after transforming was steep. He also needs complete understanding of a creature to mimic it. Other than that, it's perfect. Just in time after his experimentation, Ninetails and Demon Cow are back. It looks like they have some unconscious company in tow. Based on the White Dragon's state, it's fair to say that they've returned triumphantly. God Tree thanked his reliable generals for their hard work. He started coiling around the dragon's body using his arboreal roots. Seeing the hole in its chest, where the heart was supposed to be, shocked him. Ninetails explained that the heart had been taken by Shi Yaoqing to trade for a certain item in the Federation. Uzu hasn't seen that girl in 3 years. He just hopes that everything is going well for her. Little Panda and Snake Girl saw the others arriving with a dragon and didn't miss their chance to snap some photos. God Tree already had something that he wanted to do with this white dragon. He's going to mimic it, and that would require some hands-on dissection. After that, the expedition towards the northern depths can start. The vast and extensive expanse of the savannah will be theirs for the taking too. Even the western wasteland filled with endless sand will fall into their hands. God Tree will see to it that they can subdue a myriad of races. Only then could they face the third spirit tide with confidence. The scale of the territories owned by Misty Mountain has already surpassed that of a small country. Uzu is about to start the conquest of gathering more companions before the third spirit tide. Every beast has been assigned to their respective missions. In the Forest of Death, the savage beasts have been rampaging freely for far too long. The new and improved Z Leon has been given the chance to prove his newfound strength. He might be small in size, but a beast that can channel the void is not something to scoff at. One hit, one kill, it was a fast and clean execution. When one savage beast fell, Z Leon didn't even break a sweat, so he was going to hunt another one.
Another one.
Lung Feng and his rat army followed closely behind. They're in charge of hauling the injured beast back to home base. Even the stoic emo, Lung Feng, couldn't help but admit that Z Leon has improved by leaps and bounds with his void powers. Thunder Dragon's assigned targets are the insect beasts of the woods. In the 5th year of this new era, Misty Mountain started an aggressive push to expand its territory outwards, continually subduing and conquering beasts. From furry beasts to reptilian monsters, no one was safe from the push. The subunits of beast species grew with every expedition. Their ape beast force has grown incalculably. The humans of the Federation were left baffled by the display of strength that Misty Mountain has been exhibiting. 10 Nations Alliance was also tracking the Forbidden Region conquest. Humanity was afraid that Misty Mountain might break the pact and turn their crosshairs on them. The Luo Kingdom wanted to seek answers through the Iron First Tyrant, one of the first foreign powers that collaborated with God Tree. After 3 years of slumber, Misty Mountain has woken up like a bear after hibernation. In their conference room, the higher-ups started grilling Iron Fist about the recent rampage happening. But he's just as clueless as the other people who signed this sacrificial pact. Since having a taste of new power from Misty Mountain, Luo Kingdom has started fracturing from the top. Just as their argument was about to reach its peak, a peregrine falcon broke in through the window out of nowhere. It hurriedly recited that under God Tree's order, news regarding powerful beasts or heaven's pride of various races must be relayed to Misty Mountain in exchange for rewards. Those who fail to comply must know their place or prepare to be killed without mercy. After delivering what he had to deliver, the bird dipped out of that place with unprecedented speed. Iron Fist Tyrant and the other stooges just stood there, not knowing how to process what they just heard. The northern depths have long been plagued by the transcendent second-order frost giants. Glacier has been deployed on account of his battle experience in extreme conditions. Just his raw strength was enough to crack the rigid frost giants. The beasts of the north did not stand a chance at all. Ice Dragon has also been partnered up with Glacier to be in charge of bringing injured beasts back to camp. All the beasts that they beat up are remitted straight to Misty Mountain. The harvest this time is not bad at all. In just a short few days, they captured a huge amount of beasts from all parts of the world. But there are just 3 creatures that have caught God Tree's eyes. First was the stalwart frost giant. Next was the interesting golden rock. Last is a creature that resembles a goblin and beastman hybrid. Every beast has been disabled and unconscious except for this guy. Upon opening its eyes, the goblin immediately unleashed a burst of spiritual energy from its mouth. God Tree easily thwarted the beam away with his thick root though. He followed it up by tightening the grip around the goblin's body. Those who are not willing to follow Yuziu can die. He doesn't want to encounter betrayals while fighting against darkness. That goblin alone gave him 500,000 evolution points, raising his total to 2 million. He turned to the captured beasts and gave them the final choice. They can either surrender and pay allegiance to him or die where they are standing right now. On the other side of the continent, 2 wolf beasts have been patiently waiting for something to arrive. Transcendent Third Order Moon Wolf reckons that the Misty Mountain beasts can no longer stay still. Blood Wolf agreed, expecting the conquerors to advance in their territory soon. Moon Wolf doesn't feel threatened. He is even looking forward to their arrival. 2 leaders and a ton of wolf beasts await. They are confident that the Misty Mountain beasts won't be coming back home. Northern borders have been re-established, with frost giants guarding the territory. Z Leon couldn't help but wonder if the North would be able to endure what was to come. In the mysterious ghost region, a shady figure sits on a throne in darkness. The shady figure lamented the growth of the God Tree. Back in the grasslands, Ninetails, Demon Cow, and Little Panda have set foot on their next subjugation task. Moon Wolf has been patiently waiting for their arrival. Ninetails was taken aback by the readiness of the wolf tribe to meet them in their turf. Moon Wolf couldn't hide his exhilarated smile. He just wanted to get right into the fight. With the enemies prepared, it seems like Misty Mountain wouldn't just steamroll again today. Wolves stretched out as far as the eye could see. A fierce battle is unavoidable. Ninetails reminded her comrades to not belittle their enemies. In strength and numbers, the wolf tribe is not inferior to a deep-sea king army. Moon Wolf was quite disappointed that there were only 3 Misty Mountain beasts deployed. He thought they were being too arrogant.
You sure about that?
His first move was to command his dogs to probe their real situation. Panda and Demon Cow responded with equal intensity. The big guy's opener was his go-to-gravity axe to cleave a large chunk of unfortunate wolves. Almost all of them were trampled by a staggering downward force. This could be a great time to test out Panda's new ability. He extended his arms and summoned a sharp frost sword. Each slash was cut cleanly and froze instantaneously. Moon Wolf and Blood Wolf provided cover fire with Black Wind and Blinding Blood Ray. Both of their attacks were targeted towards the biggest threat of the bunch, Nine Tails. Those techniques were no joke. She got to activate Fiery Form right away just to be safe. She neutralized the incoming attacks and burned the dog mobs at the same instance. Moon Wolf was already expecting this level of struggle. Misty Mountain beasts are notorious for their power. But there was something else that the wolves failed to take into account. An army of mutated rats was also assigned to this mission. They just took a different path. A rat tide might not be the most menacing thing, but a rat tide with killing machines is downright terrifying. It only took a few moments for the color of the field to get replaced by the color of black fur. The rat tide locked in on the Moon Wolf, while the beasts stifled their attempts with pure spiritual power. Blood Moon dove into the thick concentration of rats and performed a Blood Ray Wild Slash. Dealing with the rats distracted the leading wolves, opening them up for exploits. That exploit took the shape of Pikachu, Lightning Rat. After some training, it even developed a tail that could get us in trouble with Nintendo. Anyone with eyes could see that this particular rat is different from the rest of the tide. That little guy should be the least of their worries. Ninetales is going in with her majestically devastating moves. Inferno Blasts swallow the wolves in a blaze of hellfire. But these dogs are tougher than they look. They were skilled enough to get unharmed. The battle of the underdogs had devolved into an all-out war between wolves and mutant rats. Have you ever seen rats that are the same size as big dogs? Now you have. They were being led by the Rat Emperor in the mid-stage of the Transcendent Third Order. Although the Emperor was slaughtering wolves left and right, the other rats were not faring well at all. Fortunately, they had the Lightning Rat to do some serious damage in clutch time. Ash Ketchum would be proud. Seeing the wolves get pushed back, another hidden powerhouse has made himself known. An ancient gigantic wolf in the Third Order of Transcendence. His powerful roar fried so many rats that it could feed an entire rat-eating village. But they would have to settle with burnt and trampled rodents for lunch. The Rat Emperor finally has a worthy opponent. To balance out the power struggle, Qinggong also appeared to provide some much-needed assistance. His Earth Golem towered over the ancient gigantic wolf menacingly. The Elemental General wanted to test this secret boss just to see the discrepancy in power. He was operating the Earth Golem from the inside like a mech pilot, while wrestling an overgrown dog. Ninetales has locked onto the Moon Wolf King for a 1 versus 1. Moon Wolf has some trash-talking gene in his body, calling Ninetales a smelly fox. Their physical battle resembled a painting of brutality and grace. On Demon Cow's side facing the Crimson Blood Wolf, things were a lot messier. Demon Cow has been swinging his battle axe all over the place, just to land a clean hit. Their respective auras clashed and wrecked everything in the perimeter. Back in Misty Mountain, Godtree was wondering what was up with Ninetales and the others in the savannah. They prepared to go up against the wolf tribe of that biome. He just hoped that his comrades were not being careless. In Australia, the beasts in that continent have surely grown by a lot. During the past 3 years, Sparky has made a name for himself as a fearsome foe, recruiting promising beasts left and right. Now that his business has been settled in this forsaken continent, it's time to go back home. He set back Australia's beast army by a lot in the time that he spent here. The war in the savannah is reaching its climax. Demon Cow even pulled his beast form out. He ditched the battle axe to use his horns, as a much more savage weapon. Blood Wolf had to retreat for a minute, or he would have been maimed to death. The wound that the horns left was deep and bleeding fast. Demon Cow commented that Blood Wolf doesn't have the strength of a leader, so it's time to change the chief. Blood Wolves still seemed confident though. There's another card that the Wolf tribe has yet to play. Misty Mountain has become too overconfident when they aren't the only ones who possess his second form. Under the light of the full moon, Blood Wolf entered his second phase through Silver Moon's protection. Ninetails noticed the fluctuation in energy on the other side of the battlefield. She tried to warn Demon Cow, but the dark sphere of energy coming from the Blood Wolf had already been primed. The attack swallowed Demon Cow's entire body. This time, his innately high defenses weren't enough to tank the technique completely. The momentary stun gave way to a brutal bite on Demon Cow's neck. He looked to the side, and the two fighters had a mutual understanding that this fight would go the distance. With a relentless combination of physical and spiritual attacks, Demon Cow's advantage from earlier had evaporated. Blood Wolf gave it his all, but Demon Cow's body has been tempered by wars, increasing its durability. On the other hand, Moon Wolf was starting to get riled up with Ninetails' limitless power. It's been a long time since he had such a good fight. That mindset might just be his downfall. Ninetails did not come here to play. She's here for a life or death battle. Moon Wolf might be having a bit of fun, but he wanted to make things clear. He didn't come here to play either. Sparky, being the coolest beast that he is, chooses to fly above water as his mode of transport back home. Following closely behind his tiny frame are three gargantuan beasts that share a very interesting trait. Back in the savannah, Ninetails has become fully engrossed in nothing but combat. Moon Wolf wants to show that she's not the only one hiding her strength here. Both beasts summon gigantic apparitions of themselves, elevating the fight to another level. Meanwhile, Demon Cow is being beaten so badly that the artist has to bust out the forbidden image sensors. The relentless Blood Wolf can't be dealt with through sheer force. It looks like he has to retrieve the battle axe to stand a chance. Because of the moon above, the wolves have increased their power and speed drastically. Blood Wolf laughs maniacally, using the power of the moon. He can give up on defense and focus on offense solely. Just looking at his body, it is obvious that there is a massive jump in stats. In his next attack, he intends to send Demon Cow to hell. Blood Wolf makes his biggest mistake yet. Speed and power are the most meaningful augmentations he could have against Demon Cow. Before even reaching his strike zone, the large-scale gravity field covers the surrounding area. Blood Wolf is supposed to dominate the fight, but the gravity field makes it impossible to even walk properly. His body has become so heavy to the point of becoming immobile. This is the type of fight where Demon Cow's ability can be displayed in full power. He loves taking the things that the opponent is proud of and smashing them to pieces. Before the battle axe goes down on the dog's head, he tries to plead that he is willing to lead the wolf tribe and joy in Misty Mountain. But it is too late. He reveals his true colors, earning him a decapitated head. Demon Cow is confident that even without this bastard, they can still control the wolf tribe. Blood Wolf is no more, and that certainly distracts Moon Wolf. He wants to kill the enemies in honor of his comrade. Ninetails is an extremely difficult obstacle to accomplish that, though. To make matters worse for the Grey Dog, Ninetails has started to form her fifth tail. He arrogantly declares that even if she has all of her 9 tails, he'd still come out on top. His avenue for that possible win is the brutal Blood Ray. The Blood Ray looks miniature as it heads for the gigantic Ninetails apparition. She responds with a scorching beam attack of her own. It has turned into a classic power struggle using Dragon Ball attacks. And as usual, the one with the smaller and thinner attack will be buried by the bigger and thicker one. Unleashing that attack, she feels a strange fluctuation in her spirit power, a sign that she's about to evolve. This was supposed to be a cause for celebration, but Moon Wolf is quite tenacious. There's no one harder to face than a beast with nothing to lose, equipped with powerful jaws. The perfect counter to that is a tiny furry backup with immeasurable strength. Little Panda has come to the rescue. Ninetails informs him of her dilemma. She needs to be brought away from here to avoid a tragedy. While everyone is busy with their respective fights, a horrifying screech and a threatening spiritual presence make themselves known. Everyone looks up to see a familiar aerial beast roaming the skies. It's the Inferno Abyssal Falcon from the Divine Flower Wall 3 years ago. It looks like Big Bird has been harboring a grudge against Misty Mountain all this time. The beast raises the ground like a fighter jet, vaporizing everything below. Little Panda wants to jump to the skies and fight, but he has to take a photo for Xiao AI first. A sharp blade aura sweeps through the skies, heading for the nuisance bird. Sparky's first stop back home is the savannah. You couldn't ask for a better reinforcement than this guy. He methodically slices and dices the falcon. He is butchering it alive. Australia made Sparky a beast on a whole new level. Even against a beast like Inferno Abyssal Falcon, Sparky's one-hit, one-kill streak looked like it would continue. He moved so fast that Ninetales only noticed that one of their comrades had arrived. But the bird was way too spunky to fall that easily. Misty Mountain stopped him from obtaining the Divine Flower, and now they're stopping him from scavenging the corpses of the Wolf Kings. His hatred for Misty Mountain knows no bounds, manifesting in his attack. Even Qinggong and his outstanding defense might not be enough to protect everyone. Sparky stayed calm though. He casually activated Quintuple Strengthening and launched a blinding offense. Big Bird's beak was broken into pieces. His injuries were way too grave. It looked as though Sparky did not even break a sweat on that one. He just turned to his comrades and announced that he was finally back. Misty Mountain is finally at full power. Of course, Little Panda had to snap a pic. The cleanup of the wolf tribe was quite simple. Without their leaders, they were herded into the underground prison. They'll only be let out once they've been completely tamed. The more pressing issue is Ninetales' evolution. Sparky sensed an indescribable force inside her body. There are two different types of power clashing inside her body. Their only move is to carefully bring her back to home base first. As for the wolves, the rats are capable enough for an underground transport job. Just as they were about to make preparations to go back home, multiple strong spirit powers started closing in. From a distance, a black panda surrounded by human knights has entered the fray. Those Iron Knights are the elite force of the Federation. They are bad news, especially the black panda leading them with murderous spirit. Sparky made the call for everyone to take Ninetales away, while he guarded the rear. Little Panda interrupted and insisted that there was no need to do that. They could just leave everything to him. It looks like he and the Black Panda had some sort of agreement to go on versus 1. Black Panda asked the little guy why he wasn't running away, when he had no intentions of letting anyone off. When asked if he thinks he stood a chance, Little Panda felt the pressure, but he put up a tough front. He had truly grown up. He knew how to talk back now. This king of the Iron Eater tribe is one of the pillars of the Federation. 2 years ago, he soloed a huge beast tide. He's so powerful that he almost flattened a forbidden region. The whole world recognized his strength for that. The king advised the Iron Knights to retreat a lot further, and they quickly did. This will be an internal battle between families. But before they exchanged blows, the king wanted to know what Little Panda's relationship was with that girl from Jiyak City. With an ominous presence and tone, he wanted to know if Little Panda got himself a girlfriend. The little guy's response was a rosy smile. That was the wrong answer. The king snapped and fully intended to kill Little Panda. This internal family affair has taken a deadly turn. The king continued to interrogate him about his relationship with that girl. He was demanding answers, while emitting a fearsome aura. Little Panda decided to play coy and didn't give him a concrete answer. That prompted the king to launch a bachelor's angry punch. Getting hit by that stupid move should be akin to tanking a bomb. Little Panda didn't expect that someone from his family would go this hard. The Iron Knights have seen this scene before. The king becomes stronger and angrier against enemies who have a girlfriend. It's the anger of a bachelor.
Stop it. Get some help.
Today, either Black Panda leaves or Little Panda dies. Still clueless about the sudden shift in intensity, Little Panda just locked in and activated his frozen fist and blazing fists simultaneously. An R-Hat bachelor kick was coming from the heavens. It was tough to defend against that, especially when used in conjunction with the love-learned seizing claw that grabbed onto Little Panda's face. The king threw the little guy to the ground, bouncing painfully. Thankfully, Little Panda activated his blazing aura to brace for impact. He followed that up with a burning headbutt. At least this was not a one-sided fight. Still, the king has a lot of tricks up his furry sleeves. He can even muster an apparition, just like Nine Tails. Since Little Panda is proving to be quite a problem, the king will get a bit more serious. That prompted Little Panda to also activate his Crimson Lotus Solar Flare Sphere. The king saw this technique back in the war against Australith and Jiar City. Right now, the outcome is still up in the air. Who will come out on top? The Little Panda with a big blaze, or the king with his virgin energy? Their collision was like a nuclear bomb test in the middle of the savannah. The king bragged that he was the most popular panda back in their zoo. Yet this little guy found a girlfriend faster than him. He was so frustrated that he chowed down on Little Panda's ass cheeks. The little guy fought back by biting the king on his tummy. Their childish fight culminated in a shouting match. The little one insisted that he was the most lovable panda in the zoo, and the kids really liked him. The king believes that everyone came for him though, especially the female university students. All the people who took care of Little Panda were beauties, and the king's attendants were all aunties. In the best meals and room though. Their argument developed into a wager of whoever wins will be the most popular one. Little Panda was all in on that ridiculous bet. Two pandas and their ridiculous beliefs are going to go all out for the sake of bragging rights. The fight was long and hard fought. Qinggang went back to check on the aftermath, and the entire savannah's topography had been messed up. He finally found Little Panda beaten black and blue, but the little guy was still breathing. His injuries are too serious. Even with the essence of life, recovery would be too slow. Qinggang had to bring him back to safety for now. Qinggang praised the little guy for driving the Iron Knights and their king away, but that wasn't the case this time. Even the knights themselves were confused as to why they let the little panda live, where they could have brought the injured midget back with them. The answer was simple: a vial of the precious essence of life. The king also wished for that little brother of his to live a good life. They're still family after all. He was so focused on fighting earlier that they forgot the corpses of the Wolf Kings. Misty Mountain already took them away. Back in the Misty Mountain, God Tree was holding an odd artifact in his vines. It was a light attribute ore. He didn't expect to find this one in the realm of steel, but the amount isn't much. It was then that Sparky finally made his appearance in front of his master. Looking at this warrior, his experience these past 3 years has been etched through battle scars. Yuziu called down a rain of life to make Sparky as good as new. After thanking the big boss, Demon Cow followed to make his entrance with the unconscious Nine Tails. Godtree also noticed that there was another power rampaging inside her body. His theory was that the traditional bloodline in her veins was starting to awaken. She needs to be situated in the spirit pool for now. Demon Cow quickly complied and delivered his eldest sister to the pool. Sparky has brought some good news from the land down under. He managed to recruit 3 promising companions. Yuziu already sensed a few unfamiliar auras earlier. Now he wanted to meet them. Sparky called on his assistants back in his Australian conquest. 3 monstrosities appeared before Godtree to pay their respects. Yuziu immediately clocked these 3 scaly creatures as flood dragons. Although they're flood dragons now, it's only a matter of time before they evolve into true dragons. The increase in their overall strength when that happens would be immense. Sparky has done an outstanding job. Bro is the undisputed MVP out of everyone. Smoke City has mellowed down these past 3 years. The citizens have accepted Thorn as their leader, and she just finished a minor breakthrough in strength. It's about time for her to go and see her beloved master. Shigao Lan and her brother also became citizens of Smoke City. Her little bro has grown quite close with White Tiger. Their favorite activity was gaming. Though White Tiger is quite a sore loser and he plays dirty. It doesn't matter. If he's up against a powerless little boy, a win is a win even if he gets insulted for being a stinky tiger. God Tree's current spiritual power has reached 40 million. It essentially quadrupled since his fight with Australith. They conquered the savannah and the Reel of Steel too. They won't have to worry about spirit flowers, herbs, and ores in the future. His strength and army should be enough to wage war against all the countries in the world. That's not even taking the humans under the pact that infiltrated various places. Godtree asked himself if he had enough to go against the power of darkness yet, but the system's warning that he'll lose everything still echoes in his mind. He can't afford to be careless. He needs to get him stronger, not just him, but the Misty Mountain as a whole. It's about time to use absolute evolution to activate his very own heavenly eye. With all the information he had gathered regarding the three-eyed divine race, it shouldn't be too difficult. The Unseal Eye ability confirms that every creature possesses a heavenly eye. He just has to tap into that source. Godtree started using absolute evolution as a catalyst for that process. This transformation immediately caught everyone's attention. It was an act that defied the natural order of things, summoning a heavenly tribulation from the skies. Godtree let out a guttural roar of pain as the tribulation started opening his vision. A ray of life pierced through his forehead, opening a space for a new organ. After a few more minutes of crushing pain, Godtree took on a new four-legged form. The transformation was nothing like he had ever felt before. From green lightning tribulations, the heavenly intervention turned purple. They helped open up his heavenly eye at the cost of relentless agony. When the tribulation finally started to subside, a new organ slowly revealed itself. Unlike the ones that the three-eyed heavenly race possessed, his heavenly eye had a deep crimson hue. The harrowing process was finally completed. Godtree's new heavenly eye looked equally majestic and menacing. I didn't know that Godtree was part of the Uchiha clan. His underlings celebrated with a hint of fear, the sight of their master's new appearance. Besides the thunderous tribulation, he had to consume more than half of his total spirit power to keep his physical form together. But it was still a massive success at the end of the day. You could now see the physical manifestation of spirit powers as glittering particles in the air. Now that he could see beyond the physical realm, Yuziv finally realized the beauty of this world. The next step is changing back to his main form to do some proper research. Now that he was seeing his heavenly eye from an outside perspective, he saw the bloody color in the 7 Magatamas. According to the system, his heavenly eye's ability is the 9 realms of heaven. He can create separate dimensions for each element he controls. This was the first time that he had seen something as ridiculous as this. He reckons that those Magatamas containing different elemental powers are the key to this ability. Brown is for the earth element, blue is for ice, red for fire, green for life. White is light, purple is void, and yellow is thunder. The question is how to open the dimensions. He tried the straightforward way of expanding one of the Magatamas, and it worked. A separate dimension opened right in front of his heavenly eye. But it was so small, coming in at approximately 10 square meters only. It can be considered a small pocket, but each elemental dimension can grow until it becomes a world of its own. At that point, it really could be considered a true Godtree. While he was busy tinkering with his heavenly eye, Ninetails also finished her crucial breakthrough. Both the Master and the strongest general have taken a quantitative leap in their powers. She's just a tiny step away from reaching the 4th order of transcendence. Except for Panda, Ninetails has the fastest growth rate. When the spirit tide arrives, she'll undoubtedly take the next step. Since she's here already, Godtree wanted to test something out. Ninetails just has to shoot her flames in his direction. She was hesitant at first, but eventually followed orders and shot out an inferno blast. Godtree opened the small entrance to the dimension of fire and the attack was absorbed. Ninetails was shocked. Her new and improved flames were devoured. Absorbing the pure spiritual flames expanded his fire dimension to 3 square meters. That's the key to cultivating his 7 worlds. Ninetails' pride was bruised and she unleashed a much stronger attack. But the big boss wasn't ready yet. The powerful attack ended up landing squarely on Yuzuyu's core. Ninetails realized what she had just done and panicked. Fortunately, the attack wasn't fatal, but it sure did hurt like hell. The system warned Yuzuyu that his dimension of fire is about to rupture. That means that absorbing too much and too fast would destroy his dimensions. It'd be better to stick with spirit stones for now. Let's take a break from experimentation and brawls to look at the Valley of Flowers, the place where Misty Mountain cultivates the spirit flowers and herbs that everyone needs. Divine Flower and her sister Butterfly are in charge of this area. They share the same love for the pretty treasures. These two have grown a lot closer throughout the years that they spent in this precious place. You could say that they were best friends and this chore was their favorite. That was until their boss interrupted girl time with his otherworldly head rearing in. God Tree proceeded to voraciously devour every flower and herb in the valley without warning. Divine Flower and her sister Butterfly were left sobbing in the middle of a bare valley, stripped of its colorful beauty. Thanks to his heavenly eye, God Tree has been on an elemental binge. He can shift the eye's position to any part of his body, so it is extremely convenient. Devouring the entire Valley of Flowers expanded his dimension of life to 1,000 square meters, big enough to fit a small villa inside. An unexpected visitor came all the way down to the Misty Mountain. Arctic Bear was supposed to be up in the northern borders. He came to report that Whale came to find him up north to give an update about what was happening under the seas. This was a crucial piece of intel, so every high-ranking beast has been called back for a briefing. Other than Thorn and White Tiger, who's running Smoke City, the 9 great beasts, Qinggang and Longfeng, were present. It turned out that the 7 deep sea kings had combined their strength to take over the depths. It's hard to imagine how they could wage a war against those fishes. They don't even know if they're necessarily stronger than the sea tribe right now. They simply don't have enough information. Humans have given up exploring the seas 3 years ago, but it's entirely possible that the sea tribe didn't stop investigating the lands. Sparky heard some murmurs in Australia that other than the Sea Kings, there are a huge number of sea tribes in the depths. Qinggang stated that the invasion 3 years ago didn't do too much damage, so they have no reason to start an unnecessary war. God Tree agreed to disagree. Those deep sea dwellers are enemies through and through. They came for him 3 years ago. They knew about his deepest secret. The 7 deep sea kings are strong, but so are the other tribes. If they can consolidate the scattered tribe, it would be a significant boost to Misty Mountain's strength. Panda Boy will take charge of this mission, as he's the only one who can travel above the seas. The spirit tide will erupt in about 15 days. They have to become as strong as possible before that happens. Little Panda used the frozen sea of the northern depths as his jump-off point. He's been making an ice bridge non-stop, and it was extremely exhausting. After who knows how long, the evolved 5-headed snake and Mr. Whale finally made an appearance. Poor little Panda had to walk a few hundred miles just to reach this point. Whale and the snake were also busy scouting for information. The sea is filled with the eyes of the 7 kings, so they had to take heavy precaution. Before all that, the 5-headed snake sure did evolve fast. He used to have only 3 heads. Little Panda finally handed down God Tree's order to rope in the other sea tribes to stand against the 7 kings. War is inevitable. When it happens, the whale's orca tribe will have to be the vanguard and their death rate will be the highest. Mr. Whale already knew that and would be glad to lead his orca tribe to battle. Using God Tree's name to start a war with the 7 kings would rope in a lot of scattered sea tribes. Misty Mountain's underwater agents are on the case. Before they got too far, Little Panda wanted to say something so badly, but realizing that this is war, he chose to shut his mouth for once. He wanted to remind them to stay safe, but safety is a luxury in war. The Sea Beast King tends to evolve backward, equipped with nothing but a killer instinct. Although the one in Godotree's possession had already lost all signs of life, the king's imprint remained. He could use that to control the scattered sea tribes. So he wrapped his arboreal roots around the Sea King imprint as tightly as possible. He then dug through the ground below, extending his roots until they eventually reached the sea. Godtree excavated his way through the deepest depths so that he could test his hypothesis. Using the Sea Beast King's imprint, he wanted to try summoning the Sea Beast tribes. To do that, he injected a new breath of life straight into the dormant king's veins. With Yuziyu's mastery of the element of life, he was able to revive the Sea Beast King as a puppet. He had complete control over its actions, so he unleashed a roar that traveled the seven seas. Using water as a medium, the roar reached all over the underwater world. Now it has become a waiting game. He was starting to lose hope when not a single one came instantly. He was starting to think that he picked the wrong place, but his doubts were unnecessary. Every beast susceptible to the king's call arrived in droves. Sea beasts of all shapes and sizes, all of them powerful, heeded Godtree's call. Seeing so many powerful sea beasts was overwhelming. If they had joined the battle 3 years ago, humanity would have been exterminated. Since this Sea Beast King hid his trump card, the other 6 must have done the same. Godtree addressed the sea tribes with a simple question of whether they were willing to be his followers. They could become part of the new era, under the leadership of a new king. Without verbal confirmation, it was hard to say whether these monsters agreed or not. But on a remote corner of the depths, one of the remaining Sea Kings picked up the bizarre roar. She also felt the dormant Sea Beast tribes wake up so suddenly. The only feasible explanations were that the Sea Beast King had come back or a new king had appeared. Either way, she needs to check things out. Using an aquatic flood dragon as a mount, the Mermaid King made her way towards the source of the anomaly. Godtree also felt her presence closing in on his position. Even he had to admit that the energy was pretty strong. The Third Order Transcendent Deep Sea Mermaid King, Elsa, has arrived with her posse. Godtree knew of this Mermaid King, but she was unfamiliar with Yuziyu's arboreal root form. This fish-human hybrid came at the right time to inspect the strength of his new Sea Beast army. With the help of the king's imprint, Yuziyu successfully united the dormant sea beasts to act according to his orders. Elsa wasn't expecting that she'd have to fight for her life. The few beasts that she brought deterred the fishy army, while Elsa looked for Godtree's root, which vanished out of thin air. The disappearing act was effective, giving Yuziyu the chance for a sneak attack. Elsa instinctively put up a shield, protecting her from getting one-shotted. The shield might have deterred the immediate impact, but Yuziyu was capable of just biting through such a thing. Once her barrier was down, Elsa spat out her bubble attack. It didn't have destructive force, but it was enough for a distraction. Unfortunately for her, petty tricks like this were useless against the Godtree. He quickly closed the gap and primed an underwater ice age attack. Elsa practically ate that freezing beam up at point-blank range. One order of frozen mermaid coming right up. First of all, Godtree is back, baby. We left off in the middle of the fight between Yuziyu and the Third Order Transcendent, Deep Sea Mermaid King, Elsa. Let's dive back into the ocean's depths and see what's up. The ice formation that the Godtree conjured underwater quickly spread. It encased Elsa inside, immobile and trapped. But it looked like the cold never bothered her anyway, as the ice started to crack. She just exerted minimal effort, and the prison she was entombed in was dispelled. Elsa immediately prepared a fitting counterattack. Manifesting her golden trident, she spawned spheres of magic that appeared all around, as the rhythm of the sea beckoned. Those magic spheres turned into an underwater tidal wave that homed in on Yuziyu. He just scoffed at the incoming attack. Godtree smashed his strong roots against the crashing waves. The collision produced a massive explosion, almost nuclear in proportion. Elsa anxiously watched as the explosion wound down. Godtree's voice broke the defending silence. He admitted that his current form wasn't enough to contend against the mermaid. Then he just used his go-to-combat form and go a little harder for round 2. The Mermaid King didn't like the thought of this mutant tree trying to make a move on the oceanic territory. Maybe it's time to drop all pretenses and just address the infamous creature by his actual name, Uzu. He wasn't too shocked that she knew his previous identity. The whale he trashed all those years ago knew, too. While the fight for the world of water was heating up, the plans within plans were also moving to the Freedom Federation, the country at the peak of human technology. A particular person resides in the Federation's capital, Sky City, the Steel Metropolis. Some magneto-looking dude named Yu Li oversees the entire country as the master of magnetism. With his transcendent third-order level, he could see the Federation suffering from the ravages of war, a battle that no one likes. He deems the taboo existence of the mutant tree as a good thing for humanity. Yuli turned to his associate and recalled the first human who broke through the Third Order, Xiao Ling from the Federation. Next up was the King of Knights from the Midnight Sun Empire, and the Saint and Saintess of Europe. Shortly after that, the new bishop from the Ten Nations Alliance. And finally, it was Yuli's turn to reach the unreachable. Amongst all the people who reached the pinnacle, the master of magnetism was unanimously dubbed as the strongest. Even with his reputation, he knew that he couldn't hold a candle against a beast like the mutant tree alone. Humans are like scattered sand, chaotic and unorganized. The status quo will need to change if they want to continue existing. So Yuli intends to invite the leaders and Heaven's Pride of each country for a gathering to discuss the future of humanity. Because after all is said and done, the unknown variable, that is, the God Tree, is still a double-edged sword for mankind. One of the invitations reached Inferno City in the Huaxia Federation. Shi Yaoqing was already expecting Yuli to stretch his hands all the way to her territory. So she burned the invitation parchment into ashes, and it scattered in the wind. She could not care less about some gathering. It was time for her to reunite with her master after all. Speaking of masters, her big boss, the God Tree, was still stuck fighting a disadvantaged battle under the ocean. Elsa had gone as far as summoning hordes of enraged marine beasts to act as dispensable foot soldiers. But God Tree also had some shooters and biters in the oceans. This quickly turned into a full-blown war. He was locked in against the Mermaid King and her oversized golden trident. This reminds me of another mythical oceanic clash. Picture this: Ao Bing, the third prince of the sea, wielding a mighty trident, and Nija, harnessing the scorching power of fire, locked in an exhilarating duel. Want to dive into this monumental battle and more? You can live and breathe these legendary encounters with today's sponsor, Overmortal. Have you ever dreamed of diving into the epic tales of Chinese mythology? Well, now's your chance. From May 23rd to May 29th, Overmortal is hosting a legendary event, the Call of Destiny. Get ready to witness an unforgettable showdown as Nija and Ao Bing, the third dragon prince, clash in a battle that will shake the heavens. But that's not all. Overmortal is bringing you some seriously cool new content. Then, transform your in-game character with Nija's Divinity Transmog. Embrace the power of the fiery warrior and let your enemies tremble at your new divine form. And who could forget about the new immortal friend? Meet Ao Bing, the third dragon prince, who's stepping into the world of Overmortal to offer unparalleled power. He's not just a character, he's your next best ally. Curious? They've got new ones. Dive into the event and discover treasures to boost your power and elevate your game to new heights. Now let's talk about gameplay. Whether you choose the path of divinity or demon, the choice is yours in Overmortal. Master your skills. Whether enhancing your physical form, practicing magic, or becoming a master of the blade. Unleash your ultimate combat prowess and dominate the battlefield. Hate grinding? No problem. With effortless idle gains from the autoplay system, your character progresses even when you're not playing. Rise to the top without the tedious grind. Prefer to play solo? Immerse yourself in the enchanting world alone, or break free and engage in PvP battles with players from across the globe. Solo or server battles. It's all up to you. And don't forget about your pets. In Overmortal, pets aren't just pets. Transform them into human-like companions and take them on your epic adventure. So, what are you waiting for? Join Overmortal's Call of Destiny event from May 23rd to May 29th and let the adventure of a lifetime begin. Divinity or Demon, Corporea or Magicka, Solo or PvP, carve your own path. See you in-game. With Yuzu's combat form activated, the flying leaf blades that he could unleash were sharper than ever. But Elsa's protective shield might be a little too tough, considering she had a home court advantage. Right after her spotless defense, she unleashed some grating sound waves. The concentrated sonic attack was so potent that it could physically cut and destroy. Yuzu finally realized that a deep sea king's strength multiplies under the sea.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
To make matters worse, Elsa took it up a notch and transformed it into her beast form. With enhanced speed and dark fins covering her body, her entire fighting style changed to a more aggressive pattern. She quickly entered the melee range unharmed and touched Yuzu's hard body. On the spot that she touched, barnacles started spontaneously appearing. From just one or two, hundreds of barnacles quickly grew and restricted his movements. Not only that, but these things also absorbed his spirit power quickly. This was Elsa's trump card. The more spirit power the enemy has, the faster the barnacles grow in number and size. They will continue proliferating until the target is totally zapped out of spirit power. Underneath the mountain of disgusting barnacles, a calm voice urged the mermaid to go to the surface, because staying under the sea was a massive waste of her talent. Hearing the shilling voice, Elsa became confused and scared. She had good reason to be both of those things. God Tree's thunder controls struck the defenseless mermaid, its damage amplified by the water. At the same time, a terrifying amount of spirit power started seeping out of the barnacle mountain. Yuzu emerged from the core of the monstrosity. He was unharmed, albeit a little drained. He quickly took the Mermaid King's unconscious body using his roots, preventing her from sinking into the depths. God Tree opened his perfected heavenly eye, while bringing Elsa's body closer to his. He activated one of the eye's independent spaces, the dimension of life. Yuzu, you meant what he said. This woman's potential is way too good to pass on. So she will follow him to the surface, even if that means trapping her in the dimension of life. Elsa regained consciousness in the middle of a bizarre and empty space, where the essence of life was emanating everywhere. She was still bound by the firm grip of the God Tree's indestructible roots. Once she calmed down a little and looked around, she couldn't help but wonder just where the hell she was. Meanwhile, Yuzu was busy evaluating her status window. Her abilities were Mermaid's Song, Mermaid's Tears, Protection of the Sea, Melody of Death, Rhythm of the Sea, and Endless Current, making her a deadly foe in battle, a well-rounded fighter in all aspects of combat. Godtree had locked her up where no one could reach her, while the cleanup of marine beast corpses was underway. He ordered his sea tribe's subjects to spread the word and expand their forces in the ocean. It would be necessary for the upcoming battles. It was finally time to end the show of the 7 Deep Sea Kings. With one down, he still had a few other targets that needed to be dealt with. He was surprised that his first underwater war went more smoothly than he thought it would. Now, he had to go back to the surface to settle some business. Usually you could only hope that everything went smoothly on the whale's side as well. Moonlight lit up the whole misty mountain region on an otherwise dark night. Someone just set foot in the forbidden territory, as if she were coming back home. That's because it is. Shi Yao Qing is back to see her master after a long time. Yu was back in his primary form, his neon hue contrasted by the crimson vines. It's been a while since he spoke to this special lady. At first, he was too worried that the humans might start getting suspicious of her absence. But Shi Yaoqing assured her master that Inferno City was under her absolute control. Even if she vanished for an entire year, her people wouldn't dare cast suspicions on her. Shi Yaoqing didn't come over empty-handed. She exchanged the heart of the white dragon for an extraordinary gift. Yu excitedly opened the small box with care. One look at its contents was enough to make him yell in surprise. Inside the box was some sort of mysterious seed. Shi Yaoqing explained that it's a seed of a laurel tree. 2 years ago, the Federation discovered a laurel tree with intelligence inside one of the forbidden regions. They were too afraid of another demon tree incident and spared no resources to get rid of the laurel. After the raid, they found a seed within the tree. Upon analysis, Yu concluded that the laurel seed was that creature's heart. This seed could be considered a top-tier treasure for him, but absorbing it outright would be a waste. Putting it in one of his heavenly eye dimensions for safekeeping, he'll just think of the most effective use for it later. Seeing her master casually bust out a perfect heavenly eye came as quite a shock to Shi Yaoqing. Yu loves flexing on his subordinates from time to time. He might be a treaty, but he still loves being complimented. Out of nowhere, he started feeling a sickly sensation coming from within. He started barfing out the contents of his body, worrying Shi Yaoqing, for she never heard of a tree that vomits. God Tree thought that something was wrong with his body. It was coming from the dimension of life, so that mermaid must be up and about by now. He quickly opened his heavenly eye again to check what was happening inside the dimension of life. Even Shi Yaoqing was roped in to see the Mermaid King in person. He nonchalantly dropped the fact that he kidnapped one of the 7 deep sea kings. The Flame Empress couldn't believe what she was hearing. It looked like her weird master was really back. The dimension of life used to be a barren wasteland that had nothing aside from an atmosphere full of vitality. But now, the ground had been filled with countless precious pearls. Based on the luster, quality, and size of these pearls, each one should be precious. Is this not just an infinite money glitch? In the middle of all the organic minerals was the subdued Mermaid King. She was a lot bigger than Shi Yaoqing thought. Noticing that there were some new faces in the barren land, Elsa shifted focus on the visitors. As soon as she saw the God Tree, she started trash-talking this smelly mutant tree and demanded to be let go. Her playground insults game is on point. Those insults against her master wouldn't fly with Shi Yaoqing. She threatened to grill and eat the mermaid if she continued being slanderous. They asked her what was with all the pearls scattered all over the place, and Elsa got defensive, insisting that they didn't come from her tears because she didn't cry. She tried to think of an excuse for the pearls, but the best she could come up with was that they came from her pee. That's even less dignified than tears. Since they were already here, Yu wanted to confirm some things. He asked Elsa if the darkness would descend together with the third spirit tide. She proudly confirmed that it would, believing that by that time, her god and the sea tribe would drown the entire continent. Once everything is destroyed, they will create a world that's only filled with the superior sea tribe. This info was nothing new. They'd heard the same story from the white elephant previously. Yu glared at Elsa and asked if the darkness also revealed his actual name to the deep sea kings. The Mermaid King praised her god as omniscient and omnipotent, a pool of infinite knowledge. She's just waiting for the spirit tide to erupt, so her dark god can bring about the end of surface dwellers. He asked her if she thought that spilling the beans like this was a good idea. Elsa smiled smugly, confident that even if she divulged everything, there was nothing that anyone could do to change the outcome of their plans.
Are you sure about that?
Yu was left deep in thought by that assertion. Then, he turned around to leave with Shi Yaoqing. Seeing that her captor was about to leave her alone in this empty place again, Elsa demanded to know how long she would remain locked up. Well, The answer was simple. She can go until the god tree is killed by the darkness. That would be a bone-chilling end on its own. But Elsa can also remain in this dimension until our boy kills the darkness with his bare hands. And by bare hands, I mean roots and vines. God Tree and Shi Yao Qing emerge from the dimension of life. 2 months from now, humans will convene for the World Conference. But the spirit tide is set to erupt within 10 days. What the world will become at that time is a mystery. You can only hope to reach the peak of the Fourth Order when the spirit tide starts. He noticed that the spirit power emitted by the moon was somehow getting thicker. So, an idea came to mind. Maybe he can plant the laurel seed on the moon so it can grow with lunar power. But with his current abilities, even he was uncertain if he could reach that far. Just for the sake of testing things out, God Tree took out his void root from the depths of the earth. He made up his mind. He's going to try and make a trip to the moon. Yu thinks that focusing all this spirit power on the void root could be enough to fuel a trip to the cosmos. Without wasting another second, his void root coiled up, increasing its momentum. When it launched into the skies, it resembled a purple dragon piercing the heavens. His massive, girthy, and hard appendage started stretching longer and longer without pause. It was heading for the moon, and no one could stop the void root. Shi Yao Qing loves seeing her master committing to crazy ideas like this one. The god tree's void root streaked across the skies for everyone to see. Some civilians nearby were the first to witness the strange phenomena. By the time the void root exited the planet's atmosphere, Yu still had enough gas to push upwards. He turned back for a bit and admired the surreal view. This was the first time he had seen the place he lived in from above. If he were still a normal human, flying towards the moon would be unimaginable. But now, he successfully followed through and touched down on the lunar surface. His void root transformed into his combat form. You could not take his eyes off the beauty of Earth. Now that he's on the moon's surface, he couldn't help but feel regretful that he can't harvest such rich spirit power. But this place can still be the home of the laurel seed from now on. It can grow roots and germinate in this rock, monopolizing the power it holds. The planting process didn't take too long, but Yu chose to linger on the moon's surface a little longer. Unbeknownst to him, this spontaneous journey was capturing the minds of humans back on Earth. Reports state that this unknown creature that appeared in the night sky is theorized to be a giant python of unknown origins. It was a worldwide event. It's not every day you see something extend up to the moon. In an unknown mountainous land, some strange beings were awakened by this event. A humanoid creature who looks like the Rock, as if he was literally made of rocks, asserted that this is a signal for the Titan race. It has been foretold that something akin to a serpent reaching for the moon will be the prophet of Titans. Yu is finally done with his little errand and decides to go back down. The moon is filled with the spirit power of the ice element, so he regrets not having enough spirit power to explore just a little more. He jumped off the moon's surface, and the void root started coming back down to the planet. This whole debacle shook the entire world. The appearance of an alleged mutant snake, estimated to be in the fourth order of transcendence, made humans and beasts feel a sense of crisis. The World Conference was pushed to take place in 3 days instead of 2 months. Under the sea, the Mermaid King's disappearance also alarmed the other kings. Meanwhile, Shi Yao Qing cheerfully praises her master for being so extraordinary. But Yu couldn't enjoy the compliments because he pushed too hard. He's so exhausted and drained at the moment. The trip was worth it, though even on Earth's surface, he could feel the power from the laurel tree sprout. That's a crazy sharp sense, to feel the presence of creatures on the moon from the surface. This eventful night just got even more eventful as one of the peregrine falcons came rushing in with utmost urgency. Ah Wu was supposed to be patrolling over the seas with Ah Liu, but he's back in the misty mountain alone instead. The frantic bird was carrying some urgent bad news. Yu tensed up after hearing that. They can't afford any crazy variables right now. Since Ah Wu has been diligently patrolling the seas, the bad news naturally came from the water, too. Human battleships are on their way, and the deep sea kings are about to reach the next level of evolution and cultivation. The inevitable battle between humans and deep sea kings has finally started. At the helm of humanity's forces was mankind's strongest, the master of magnetism, Yuli. The Freedom Federation's fleet was massive and imposing. It looked like they had sent their entire armed forces to the sea. Hua Xia Federation's lineup wasn't bad, either. They would not pale in comparison to the other nations' deployment. Yuli stood at the helm. He could smell the rotten stench of death coming from the water. That was because the field was filled with the corpses of sea creatures, as far as the eye could see. A mysterious glow started shooting up from beneath the water and into the skies. Yuli rejoiced. It looked like they were on the correct course. The target for this raid was just ahead. He handed down the order to halt the push of the entire fleet. He intended to check out the situation by himself first. Enveloping his body with the power of magnetism, humanity's so-called strongest flew to the enemy's territory. A gaggle of fishy beasts was already waiting for him, with their maws wide open. He hadn't gotten far from the fleet yet, but Yuli was already surrounded on all sides. The horde didn't scare him, though. It didn't even faze him. He looked at them like they were nothing. Yuli went on his intercom and ordered his people to activate the guided spirit missiles. The headquarters received the order promptly and quickly followed their ruler's instruction. Guided spirit missiles used to be a trump card level attack, but humanity could now afford to go wild with the quantity. Other nation leaders were starting to receive updates on the sea raid and Yuli's barrage. The Federation's head also ordered the activation of their spirit orbital cannon, for they couldn't allow another hostile fourth-order transcendent creature to emerge, a beast that was feared no matter what biome it was in, the black dragon that hailed from the depths. It was nearing a significant breakthrough that even the heavens had noticed. Its power level was climbing up so fast that the clouds wanted to humble it a bit with a little bit of lightning tribulation. But the Black Dragon welcomed the challenge with open arms and swagger. It was determined to reach the fourth order of transcendence today. Meanwhile, the Spirit Orbital Cannon had been charged to total capacity and had locked onto the beast. The Bureau head found the perfect timing to unleash the destructive force and pulled the trigger. From the Federation's orbital satellite came the most powerful single attack that humanity's technology could muster. It was so powerful that it tore through the clouds, handing down the heavenly tribulation. The Black Dragon was enveloped in a searing beam that would have deleted any other weaker monster out of existence in the blink of an eye. But it gritted its teeth and arrogantly sneered at the pressure, pressing down on its entire body. While the orbital cannon continued to push every ounce of power from the comfort of space, another incoming force was heading for the beast. It was Yuli. He recognized the orbital cannon of the Federation and wanted to jump in on the party, since every nation was afraid of having another overpowered problem in the form of a dragon. The madman was bringing hundreds of guided spirit missiles along with him, controlled by his own magnetic power. Imagine pulling up to a dragon with your country's nuke supplies. Mr. Black Dragon might be confident in tanking one advanced human artillery, but this much could be a problem. It didn't have much of a choice in the matter, as the missiles were only seconds away from blowing up at every possible angle. The combination of the orbital cannon and the barrage of missiles was a terrifying display of human ingenuity when it came to destruction. Yuli confidently laughed as he continued chucking priceless explosives at the dragon that just wanted to break through. The radius of annihilation continued to grow bigger and bigger as more material was added to the fire. The master of magnetism was not pulling any punches. It was like the cost of making weapons of mass destruction didn't matter to him. Up in the cosmos, the Federation was going for another load of the orbital cannon's beam. Their orders were to continue charging and continue firing. At least humans had wised up and were doing their best to stop the powerful beast from getting too powerful before it was too late. The orbital cannon struck again. and it bore down at the weakening beast's body. It looked like Yuli had run out of his oversized ammo as he witnessed the cannon's power closely. Even though it was a weapon made by a different nation, he still couldn't help but admire its force. But even after all that, the Black Dragon's menacing eyes still poked through the smoke as the attacks settled down. It was angrier than ever before, and the closest enemy in the vicinity was the free-flying master of magnetism. Yuli cursed at himself and the beast. He might have messed it up. Just like the orbital cannon, the Black Dragon also had an attack backed by near-infinite spirit power that could obliterate everything in sight. This guy pulled out an Uno reverse card. And that draconic beam was aimed solely at the pesky human, flying around and pelting it with annoying nukes. The Federation's Bureau got the visual confirmation that their target wasn't destroyed. Worse, its spirit power was still rising non-stop. They did their best, but the resilient dragon was still about to complete the breakthrough. At this moment, not far from the action, there were some unexpected spectators watching from the sidelines. It was the God Tree's Void Root in his Void Snake form, along with his protege, Xiaoqing. She asked her master if they were going to lend a helping hand to the struggling humans. It wasn't opposed to the idea of helping, but there was no need to rush. They could wait and see a little bit longer. Xiaoqing was curious as to what her master would do if the dragon managed to break through. To dispel their curiosity, he decided to use the Void Snake to scout out the actual situation up close and personal. God Tree's Void Root currently looked more like a real draconic being than a tree root. The Freedom Federation's fleet decided to finally make themselves useful by raining down the highest caliber artillery their ships could carry. It was effective in dealing with the roaming sea beasts, hell-bent on munching on metal ships. The same thing was happening on the Huaxia Federation's side. They were quickly increasing the death toll of the seemingly infinite sea beasts, attacking indiscriminately. Bullets and explosives targeted the beasts, most of whom were dead, before getting an attack in. Meanwhile, in the fight that actually mattered, Yuli was moving with newfound confidence. That's because he just got a new batch of guided spirit missiles to play around with. At least he could stand some semblance of a chance against a literal dragon's breath. The collision between the explosives and the draconic beam produced a loud boom of devastation. Black Dragon was almost impressed with the kind of weapons that humans could make with their puny capabilities. Yuli took pride in that. To deal with this dragon, he would gladly utilize tens of thousands of guided spirit missiles for the kill. Right now, he had only used a few hundred of his capsules of death. He quite literally had a lot more where they came from. In response to his threats, the Black Dragon conjured up tornadoes in the middle of the ocean. These waterspouts, spinning at inconceivable speeds, started twisting and turning around one another. The Federation's Bureau had a clear view of the giant tornadoes, estimating each one at level 10 on the power scale. It was an unprecedented weather-changing ability. To make things worse, the beast started taunting the humans to bring all their tricks out while they had the chance. Yuli gladly obliged and launched his next batch of guided spirit missiles into the middle of the storm. Each explosive was caught in the wind tunnels of the tornadoes. It had now become impossible to reach the beast, as the twisters were doing the sloppy-toppy spin cycle, sucking in the girthy explosives. Suddenly, a powerful blast hailing from the skies broke through the impenetrable stormy defense. The orbital cannon's third strike was not the charm. The Black Dragon had adjusted enough to dodge it by coiling his body around. Those in the Bureau could not believe their eyes. Their fastest and most potent weapon had just missed its mark. Not only that, but the dodge also gave the Black Dragon enough breathing room to gather more power. The Bureau director watched the screen as an absurd idea popped into her mind. Unfortunately for the Federation, her hunch was correct. The beast was attacking the Spirit Orbital Cannon itself. His draconic breath broke through the skies and the planet's atmosphere, ultimately hitting the satellite holding the weapon. In the face of absolute power, the flimsy satellite hopelessly disintegrated into a million pieces drifting in space. Yuli watched powerlessly as the dragon's attack extended to such an absurd range. But the dragon wasn't done yet. After targeting the enemy above, it was time to go back to dealing with the pest below. The master of magnetism was starting to lose confidence. He knew more than anyone that this was not good. So he hurriedly made a sphere of magnetic force, attracting the scraps of metal that came from his guided spirit missiles. The black dragon sneered at the absurd sight of this guy, using metal crumbs to defend himself so desperately. His mind was already drifting to the next fight, and he would find the king in Australia. This beam that sniped a satellite from the planet's surface was now trying to destroy a sphere of tattered metal scraps. Yuli quickly realized that his frantic attempt to protect his body with trash was way too silly and absurd. The draconic breath ripped through layers upon layers of metal until the attack culminated in a massive blast in the middle of the sea. Yuli was bleeding from every orifice of his puny human body. Burns and wounds painted his entire being red with blood. He remained floating in the air as if, out of instinct, his consciousness had left the room. This Magneva knockoff is a certified fraud. In the Freedom Federation's headquarters, stress levels were through the roof. Their king was about to die. The only thing they could do was send out and sacrifice the fleets, so they could at least earn some time for an escape. The ships that were dealing with the small-time aquatic beasts received the order and quickly followed. Fleets from Hua Xia had also received the news that the Freedom Federation's master of magnetism was in a fatal situation. The captain immediately handed down the order to coordinate with the other fleets to cover for the king, as even though they were from different nations, humanity could not afford to lose their so-called strongest. But there was another urgent situation that needed attention. All their advanced sonar and mapping tech indicated that another beast was closing in on the battlefield. Once the mystery guest got closer to the scanners, humans determined that it wasn't a sea beast. It was the giant snake that infamously flew to the moon. Godetree's void root transformation was so drastic and decisive that it had already gained a reputation of its own. The black dragon also sensed the unwelcome intruder. Yuli's consciousness came back to him after floating in the air like a dead man for quite a while. Meanwhile, Godetree's void snake had decided to give the black dragon a taste of his own medicine, a beam of pure spirit power meant for annihilation. The beast was starting to grow frustrated as annoying things just kept popping up one after another when he just wanted to break through. Two monsters, both with draconic qualities, have engaged in a Dragon Ball-style battle to see who had the more vigorous cool attack. Based on the overpowering purple beam and the black dragon's flabbergasted expression, it's safe to say the void snake got the upper hand. Without waiting for the smoke from the collision to clear out, the void snake came in, roaring with his mouth wide open. His target was the black dragon's resilient body. He landed a bite on the frame that was powerful enough to withstand countless bombs and orbital cannons. Godetree's void snake gripped the back of the dragon's neck with his fangs, as if it owed him money. Yuli had regained full consciousness and realized that he might be out of trouble with the new fighter coming in. People standing by at the headquarters were confused and a little optimistic about the snake's appearance. They watched as the simple bite from earlier turned into a devastating attack that melted through the black dragon's scales and flesh. To add to the insult, the void snake rudely demanded that the black dragon should get the hell out of the surface. He'd just go back into the sea, where he came from. Godtree intends to help with that. Tightening the already hurtful bite, the void snake plunged towards the water, while dragging the helpless dragon. Even after diving down below to the dragon's home court, it was still powerless against the brute strength of the snake. They went so deep and so fast that it did not take too long to hit the deep sea bed. Black Dragon had merely passed out at this point when he was supposed to dominate the war that he had started. Yuzi knew that he couldn't let this guy off after such humiliation. Allowing a dragon to grow further will definitely bring some big problems in the future. So, He opened his maw and channeled the power of the void through the million shockwave. The attack landed squarely on the dragon's body. The poor guy was already suffering from debilitating wounds on the back of his neck, and the void snake just kept on adding fatal injuries. Million shockwave continuously pushed the beast, embedding him deeper and deeper into the deep sea caverns. That should be enough to kill a dragon, right? Well, not quite. The black dragon was inches away from dying, with all the wounds and injuries that it had sustained, but he was still breathing. His spirit power was dropping extremely fast, and his seemingly endless vitality was starting to dwindle. While Yuzi was assessing the situation of his enemy, an alarming presence assaulted his sharp senses. He just felt an abnormally high spirit power closing in on his position. It might just be a new enemy approaching. A primal-sounding voice referred to the god tree by his real name, Yuzi, and enthusiastically welcomed him to the depths like an old friend. At first, he thought it was the deep-sea dragon king ambushing him. But no, this alarming feeling he was experiencing was way more deeply embedded. It was the freaking final boss. Darkness itself has taken the form of an ethereal beast. The indestructible body of the black dragon has been fully taken over, and Yuzi calmly asked if Darkness had already started his descent. Darkness cordially explained that he just sent a strand of his soul that would dissipate soon. He did so because he wanted to talk to Yuzi about something important. He did not mince his words and asked if God Tree would like to join the mission of Darkness and his army.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
If you think about it, they should not have any irreparable conflict or interest in enmity. There's no reason for them to fight against one another so hard. They should not be engaging in a bloody war when they don't have opposing ideals. If the Darkness and the God Tree can work together, who can stop them? Darkness lays the cards on the table, and it's up to Yuzi to decide what he wants to do about them. With an intense look in his eyes, he firmly refused the team-up offer. He knew that the mere existence of Darkness would speed up the collapse of the world, and every living creature would be under the constant threat of death. All living creatures continue to struggle just to live. Some would die of illnesses or natural causes, but every one of them will leave traces of their existence in this realm. But Darkness will undoubtedly destroy the order of things on this planet. So, as the representative of all that is alive, Yuzi the God Tree has formally declared war against Darkness. He will not sit idly while the manifestation of annihilation destroys the world. Surprisingly, Darkness wasn't offended. He just laughed and deemed Yuzi to be an interesting individual. He warned them that they'd meet again soon, so this so-called God Tree better get stronger. With a menacing grin, Darkness expressed his excitement for their battle in the future. But for now, he can afford to let the Black Dragon, one of his soldiers, die so soon. With the little bit of time that the strand of soul had left inside Black Dragon's body, Darkness darted out of the battle away from the Void Snake's threat. After the fight, the dragon's spirit power should have dissipated, but it broke through the Fourth Order instead. Yuzi had no other choice but to leave the rest for the humans to handle while he retreated. He swam in the opposite direction from the enemy, back to his main body. Meanwhile, Darkness picked a relatively safe position to park the dragon's body. When the soul strand dissipated, Black Dragon's body turned back to its injured and battered, normal self. He coughed up copious amounts of blood. After confidently challenging the surface, all he got in return were fatal injuries and a newfound hatred and thirst for vengeance against the purple snake and humanity. At least he successfully broke through, thanks to Darkness's assistance. Up on the surface, scanners picked up the sudden drop in the spirit power of the dragon. They wanted to take this chance to search for the beast and finish the job. The sizable fleet of the Freedom Federation led the charge with their cutting-edge tech. Meanwhile, Godtree's Void Root has made its way back to the Misty Mountains. In his home, it looks like our favorite little panda was experiencing some earth-shattering breakthrough. He had successfully reached the peak of the Third Order of Transcendence. The ladies of the mountain cheered him on. Yuzi was back in his main body and was extremely pleased that one of his generals had gotten stronger once again. It's been 3 days since the fight with the Black Dragon. The day of the Spirit Tide looms closer and closer. Today should be the perfect time to call everyone back home. As always reliable, Peregrine Falcon faction quickly gathered to take the order, to inform each of the Misty Mountains armies to head back. The birds knew the weight of the God of Tree's orders, so they didn't waste another second and flew to fulfill their master's demands. Yuziyu turned to Shi Yaoqing and asked if her Inferno City could make guided spirit missiles and orbital cannons. With the current capabilities of her territory, they can't make something as sophisticated as an orbital cannon yet, but manufacturing guided spirit missiles wouldn't be a problem. That's still good news. So, her assignment is to produce as many of those missiles as possible. She gladly received her orders with a smile. Next up, to carry out another task was Qinggang, who appeared from the earth the minute his master called his name. God Tree wanted a rundown of how the management of the 3 cities was going. Currently, the humans in their cities have peacefully assimilated with the beast residents, coexisting in harmony. There are a few beasts that have signed contracts with humans, becoming combat partners. God Tree wanted the information about the 3rd Spirit Tide's descent to be passed down to the cities. Their people must know what's about to come, so they can prepare themselves for the effective absorption of power. Shi Yaoqing suggested that they shouldn't disclose what's coming as the Spirit Tide, but as a miracle instead. The belief of the city people towards the God Tree will drastically increase. Yuziyu himself did not think of something ingenious like that. Qinggang received his mission loud and clear. It's time to brainwash their cult, their residents, so that they can be prepared on the promised day. He dove right back into the earth, and his mastery over the element has grown by leaps and bounds after all these years. Once, only Yuziyu and Shi Yaoqing left the heart of the Misty Mountain, and he confessed that he saw darkness in the depths. She was naturally shocked and worried about her master after hearing that. God Tree continued that it was just a tiny part of darkness's consciousness, but it still awakened some strange feeling inside him. He thought he was already strong enough, but the moment he witnessed just a fraction of the final boss's power, all his delusions were erased. Under the gaze of darkness, he still felt a deep sense of fear, the kind that is imprinted on every creature on the planet. The last time Yuziyu felt that brand of emotion was back when he was still a human. The terror in his mind awakening can't be a good sign. Shi Yaoqing assured her master that they would definitely come out on top, not just the beasts but humans as well. The living will live on and triumph over the nothingness. Hearing his subordinate's determined voice reignited the fire in Yuziyu's eyes. He vowed that they would never lose. There's no need to dwell on the encounter for now. He just needs to focus and prepare for the arrival of the Spirit Tide, along with everyone else. Night came, and I think this would be the perfect time to check on what's happening on the surface of the moon. The laurel seed that the God Tree painstakingly placed on the moon's surface has started sprouting. Its growth rate was abnormally fast, quickly forming a diverging system of branches. Once the frame was set, beautiful leaves started emerging, too, covering the branches with a gorgeous blue hue. From a tiny laurel seed, it only took a few days for a whole laurel tree to grow to its current impressive state. Back on Earth, Yuziyu looked at the skies, feeling the changes happening on the heavenly body. There was no doubt about it, and he was sensing the breath of the laurel tree. Based on the increasing distinct spirit power, he knew that the abnormal growth was going in full swing. But based on its current state, there's still plenty of room to grow further. He wished for the laurel to continue working hard and to grow up fast. Humans have already done extensive research with regard to the moon before. In the current transcendent generation, humanity has put the nearest heavenly body under constant surveillance. Even hobbyists or kids who have a simple telescope could freely observe the moon. The growth of the laurel tree was visible from Earth. The Astronomy Bureau was plunged into chaos as they tried to inform the Spirit Power Monitoring Bureau that there was a mysterious plant growing on the moon's surface. A store-bought telescope, which showed the image of a lone blue tree, standing strongly. Experts have figured out that based on its characteristics, it should be a laurel tree. This was not a good sign at all. If this thing grows into another existence, like the infamous mutant tree, the consequences would be unthinkable. It's entirely possible that the magnetic field between the Earth and the Moon could go out of whack, which would be disastrous. Back in the Misty Mountains, a conglomeration of various beasts at a scale that the world had never seen before was starting to gather. The mantises and the boars came in at the same time, coming from the same direction. The ape faction has left their post to heed the master's orders. The mute rats and the formidable tiger tribe carefully trudged the ground. Hailing from the north, the Arctic bears and the mysterious ice golems steadily made their way. The ants and the spiders came skittering in with all their disgusting glory. White crane, vultures, and the peregrine falcon faction took to the skies. The rest of the beasts stationed inside the Misty Mountains were just waiting for everyone else to arrive. Even the mutated humans and humanoid beasts that have sworn their fealty to the God Tree have gathered. As for the great beasts named by the God Tree himself, it's the first time in a long time since they have assembled. Every faction took their positions and waited for the God Tree to speak up. Except for those unreachable in the seas, namely the snake and the whale, everyone has answered the call. Yuzu busted out his void root, breaking through the hard ground. He instructed them to prepare as the third spirit tide was upon them. With his attunement to the void and spirit power, thanks to his special root, he can sense the tide before everyone else. Using the sharpness of his void root, God Tree literally slashed the air and created a dimensional rift, and a rich concentration of pure spirit power became visible. God Tree welcomed the concentrated spirit power after shattering space to evenly distribute power to his subjects. The liquid-like substance from another realm turned into bright shards filled with the purest form of power and rained down on everyone in the Misty Mountains. Beasts of all shapes, sizes, and species have united under the banner of a god, and they were harvesting the benefits in the form of a golden rain.
Wow! Beautiful!
God Tree promptly tasked them to absorb the incoming surge of power properly. The amount of spirit power pouring out of the dimensional rift was seemingly endless as it blessed the land. Far from this festival of breakthroughs, something much more sinister was happening in the seas. A small and dark figure darted out of the water, breaking through the surface with godlike speed and intensity. It was a single perfect black sphere, barely bigger than water droplets. When the red slit in the middle of its body opened, a red eye filled with malice scanned the world for the first time. An ominous aura surrounded the sphere's entire body. The little black sphere surveyed its surroundings, water stretching endlessly in every direction. He was finally out at last. It has been a few thousand years since he last awakened. But now, he no longer has to be trapped within the freezing depths of the sea. At the moment, this little sphere body of his is too weak to function correctly. So, the natural course of action is to get some evolution points first. That's because this little menacing guy is darkness himself. At the first stage of entry level, Bro also has his system. Things are about to get spicy. The third spirit tide is now in full swing. The beasts of Misty Mountains are currently concentrating on their own breakthroughs as the tide sweeps the territory. Ninetails was at the forefront of spirit power absorption. She is second only to the God Tree himself after all. But even with her massive pool of existing power, ascending to a higher stage with a vast influx of spirit power is still taxing. Emperor Alligator might have been out of action for a while now, on account of him taking charge of the Misty Mountain security, but he's become more robust, and his power level continues to rise. He braced himself and absorbed as much of the tide as he could. The Thunder Dragon was already gifted when it came to his natural affinity for spirit power, so this spirit tide was like a feast to him. Every bit of those glowing shards falling into the Misty Mountains was like a super drug. The other draconic beast on the team wasn't doing so badly either. It was almost unfair, just how well these dragons can attune themselves to the tide. God Tree also noticed this phenomenon. He already expected that the dragon attribute beasts would be the first to evolve. Just behind them was the white tiger. The dumb kitty might be stupid, but he's a monster when given the right resources. However, the one that you was most concerned about was not his generals. It was the golden monkey sitting in a meditative pose, while clutching his trusty stick. His body was faintly emitting the power of the stars. Nevertheless, looking at his family growing up and becoming stronger in front of him brought so much joy to the God Tree's heart. The spirit tide is only getting started. Everyone needs to make the most of this event. Back in the sea, the waves have also been acting out in response to the spirit tide sweeping the entire planet. Inside a humble rocking fishing boat, most of the workers lay lifeless on the deck, their lives sucked out of them. The albino-looking mysterious culprit was practically ingesting the souls of these poor humans forcefully. And when he was done, he just discarded their corpses like trash. Of course, it was darkness. Sucking off humans gave him a humanoid form, reaching the first order of transcendence with 1,000 evolution points to spare. He was woefully unsatisfied with the paltry amount of evolution points he got after killing so many people. Targeting humans is not going to cut it if he wants to get stronger faster. As if the heavens were listening to his dilemma, he sensed a strong spirit power under the water, roaming the depths. So he fearlessly dove back into that freezing cold water in search of the next prey. He was a predator through and through, with no emotions, no hesitation, just an insatiable hunger for more power. After diving deep enough, he started seeing the silhouette of a massive spiky beast freely roaming the water. Darkness recognized the beast from afar. It's the synthetic beast made by humans. For those who were waiting for the return of Godzilla, this is your lucky day. This nuclear lizard is about to go toe-to-toe with the incarnation of literal darkness. The fight that ensued couldn't even be called a fight. An explosion of power boomed in the depths, and the collision concluded. Godzilla emerged from the water, breaking through the surface. But the dark aura and the bizarre eye on his forehead suggest that our favorite lizard didn't emerge victorious. Darkness has possessed Godzilla or Zero's body, jumping to the third order of transcendence. But he was a little disappointed. He had expected a much stronger body than he had. Well, that problem has a solution, and Darkness was already on his way for the answer. In Australia, the spirit tide is also about to start raining down from the skies. Kangaroo longingly looked at the initial spirit power specs coming down. He reckoned that the spirit tide was upon their continent. The small amount of spirit power leaking from the sky was a testament to that. In the hidden burrows, the king of the continent and his disgustingly fleshy body also sensed the change in the air. The previous tide rose up from the ground. This time, it looks like it will be falling from the sky. No, not the skies, but from the cosmos itself. Kangaroo was just chilling on the shores when he noticed that something big was heading his way. Darkest Zero was actually aiming for Australia with his beastly speed. It didn't take him long to arrive at his destination. The moment he emerged from the water, bad vibes started spreading in the land. Kangaroo recognized the beast as the Freedom Federation's artificial beast, but the purpose of this visit was unclear. As soon as Darkness Zero stepped foot on Australian land, Kangaroo decided to step in and ask some questions. Australia is not a place that beasts can approach whenever they want. Kangaroo threatened to wage war against the Freedom Federation if another step was taken. Darkest Zero didn't take another step, and he just unleashed a nuclear beam right from the get-go. Australia's Guardian wasn't expecting such hostility without even a discussion. The nuclear blast started ravaging the rocky topography of the shore. Darkness Zero was taken aback that his attack didn't cause as much destruction as he was expecting. Well, that's because someone has decided to come out of the hidden ground to give a personal welcome. The Beast King of Australia has come out of his nest and has set his sights on the dark-powered nuclear lizard. He ordered the kangaroo to retreat at once, for he's not a suitable opponent for this aberrant enemy. Two titans faced off, gauging each other from a distance.
Let them fight.
The king recognized that this creature was not Zero, so he pressed for the truth. In response to his attempt at interrogation, Darkness Zero unleashed another beam. This one wasn't effective either. It was deflected by the king's tendrils. The beam went overhead and exploded past the king. He wanted to counterattack, using his tendrils coated in spirit power. The green vines quickly bound the dark nuclear lizard, restricting his movements. But this technique wasn't just for binding and control. The tendrils burst open, and a chorus of humic acid sprayed all over Darkness Zero's scaly body. Its sheer amount was enough to cover the Titan's frame from head to toe and blanket the ground. The king was quite pleased with himself. Kangaroo knew that getting hit by the king's humic acid would be a death sentence. Anyone unfortunate enough to experience the brutal attack had turned into a puddle of blood. But this one didn't. Darkness Zero started glowing with a nuclear light instead. With a bloody roar, he broke free from the acid, covering his entire body unscathed. The king stared in surprise, his disgusting, glowing red eyes flinched. After breaking free, the giant lizard launched his sharp tail, moving at breakneck speeds. It stopped before it reached the king's body. He refused to let go of the tail and started lifting the beast with little to no effort. The king started emanating a green light that looked like bad news. It enveloped Darkness Zero while his tail was still at the mercy of the bizarre monarch. Even the kangaroo that was just trying to watch the fight was caught in the impact. Unlike the prior attacks, this one looked like it hurt the beast. The king's tendrils jolted back into action, grabbing the monster's neck with a death grip. He's called the king of the continent for a reason. The Australith from before was bad enough, but the big boss is an even bigger problem. Darkness Zero kept roaring in agony, while the opponent tried to choke him into submission. The yanking and pressure became so bad, it ripped out Godzilla's tail. When it comes to brutality, Australia's king is at the forefront. His next attack involved another batch of those bizarre globules forming around his body. He assured the lizard that all the painful wailing and howling would stop soon, as he'd gladly send the intruder to hell. The biospheres protruding from the king's body finally exploded into hundreds of individual spirit power beams. Each one had enough force to tear through the scales, flesh and bones of the beast, maiming and shredding the unwanted guest. Some of the beams even hit the monster's face, vaporizing the skull and brains. When the king fights, he goes hard. By the looks of his intense barrage, he really wanted to delete the enemy out of existence. After winding down the terrifying attack, the only thing the king could see in his crimson eyes was the blood of the enemy. The massive synthetic beast had been reduced to an unrecognizable slop of meat and blood. What was once a glorious monster that could have terrorized any other place had been transformed into a bleeding rag. Kangaroo was assured that his master won. That lizard got turned into coal and mutilated beyond recognition. But he might have spoken too soon, as Darkness Zero's unmendable injuries started swiftly regenerating. The king had never seen anything like this before. Regeneration of this level shouldn't be possible. Healing heavy injuries with the last bit of consciousness shouldn't be feasible. But he clearly sensed that this mysterious intruder had already lost all signs of vitality. He was essentially a corpse a few seconds ago. So how in the world is this thing rekindling his life? Earlier, the king was just angered and insulted, but now, a seed of fear was starting to grow in his mind. For the first time, Darkness Zero responded that this type of thing was no big deal for him. It was Darkness speaking now. He wasn't expecting another powerful beast to exist in this world, other than UZU. Coming to Australia was the correct choice. Kangaroo also felt a sense of despair as the enemy put himself back together like it was nothing. The king was curious as to what this intruder was really aiming for in this place. Darkness Zero went back to silent mode, only responding with his actions. He bomb rushed the king, and gripped him tightly. In place of his skull was a dark cloud of negativity, where his real form was leaking out into the world. With a sinister laugh, the cloud of darkness expanded bigger than the two beasts combined. He wanted the king's body for himself, but the tough monster wasn't going to let that happen so easily. A bizarre energy started coalescing on the king's body, shooting up into the skies. Darkness faltered a little bit as if he recognized this power. It's a power that can destroy all matter. Even spirit power would be of no use, as this blast would send everything in sight into oblivion. The kangaroo finally decided to get the hell out of there, afraid that his master's attack would disintegrate him too. Darkness and the mysterious power of the hidden king. Who will win? Place your bets. The devastating sphere of annihilation expanded so fast and so big that it became visible from outside the planet. The explosion was so powerful that it turned the battlefield into scorched land. Molten lava replaced the rocks as far as the eye could see, but the kangaroo somehow got to safety. Darkness turned back to his mini-sphere form. The king just stood motionless. He lost Godzilla's body and was forced to turn back to his weakest form. The king mockingly asked the miniature harbinger of death if this was his proper form. Australia's strongest then proceeded to flex his own transformation. A grotesque mouth opened at the side of his face, increasing his creepy factor to over 9,000. His most vital abilities are creating and combining. He can create creatures in his image. Combining, on the other hand, allows him to transform the abilities of the creatures that he consumes into his own. As the disgusting mouth closed in on darkness, he stayed calm. In fact, he looked a little too self-assured. The king's maw chomped down on the sphere with gusto. Kangaroo watched from the sidelines, thinking perhaps this time it was truly over. This monster really used such a massive mouth just to chow down on a little blob of darkness. His flashiness might have just been his downfall. The king buckled as dark clouds started leaking out of his body. This fight was just too stressful for the poor kangaroo watching from afar. After the dark clouds settled, the king's aura had changed into something even more sinister than it already was.
You can't keep getting away with it!
The top of his head had turned completely black, and a glowing red slit could be seen. Mr. Kangaroo was woefully confused. He couldn't tell if his king won or lost. The continent's monarch arrogantly answered that there was no way that he'd lose. But something about this singular freaky eye is telling me otherwise. On some level, the loyal servant of the king must have felt that as well. But he was so dedicated to the king that he immediately groveled and apologized for overstepping. He could feel the breath of the king, but also the breath of the enemy in a single body. But prodding further might cost him his life. The bulbous tendril that smothered and locked the lizard earlier started heading for the kangaroo. Cold sweat ran all over the poor guy's body as he pleaded with his king for mercy. But the tendril did not make direct contact. It stayed a decent distance, shooting out a mysterious but gentle glow. Mr. Kangaroo swiftly felt a newfound power coursing through his veins. It was so intense that it was gushing out of his body. Just containing the rampaging strength filling him up took everything he had. But this is what he truly wanted. He desired power, and that's precisely what he got. The Dark King liked this new skill of bestowing other creatures with powerful abilities. He ordered the loyal servant to call every one of their forces around the country at once. Dark King unleashed a primal roar that echoed throughout the lands. The infamous beasts of Australia must have sensed that their king was beckoning them to come closer, so they did. Beasts from the land, from the air, fuzzy beasts that looked like they'd make for a great stuffed toy, but could also detach your head from your body. Other beasts that looked like the king hiding beneath the ground. Everyone gathered towards their master. I didn't think that this guy could look any more disgusting, but he still managed to surpass my expectations. He looked like a messed up cake with blood boils. He called every beast in his faction for one thing only, to bestow power beyond their wildest dreams. Back in the Misty Mountains, UZ was managing his abilities again. He was fixated on the level 3 wood dragon skill that turns his main roots into a half-dragon. He was thinking of leveling up the ability in hopes of transforming his main root into a true dragon, unlocking the ability to fly. His current spirit power level had reached 85 million. The 7 dimensions of his heavenly eye had expanded multiple times due to absorbing the spirit tide. Every single dimension was filled with spirit power that could be used by other beasts to train. He could basically summon his subjects and take them anywhere he wanted. But the most important thing right now was to take advantage of the tide and expand his space even bigger. So, he opened his 7 dimensions all around his body, letting them catch the steady drip of free spirit power from the rift. God Tree could just keep this up and get a whole lot stronger, since the dimension of life was also left open along with the others. Mermaid King Elsa was allowed to see the fragments of spirit power slowly descending. She didn't only get to watch, she was also able to utilize the super drug to cultivate her power. Elsa peacefully meditated under the influence of the spirit tide. While that was happening, a grave feeling struck Ziyu out of nowhere. He just detected a familiar breath coming from Australia. There was no doubt about it, darkness had already descended. The Australian faction had gotten out of the bleak battlefield, that turned into a lava floor and was now the seaside. Kangaroo was curious why the king would bring them here, but he didn't dare to ask the monster out loud. As if on cue, something started emerging from the water, breaking through the surface. It was the 7 deep sea kings, or at least what was left of them. Mr. Kangaroo immediately went on high alert, yelling at the fishy kings with hostility, as if another war was about to break out. The 7 kings did not even spare him a glance, their eyes were transfixed on one creature only. They turned to the Dark King and celebrated his awakening. They got the seas in Australia. How are you supposed to beat that? The upper echelon of the depths had gathered in one seafood cocktail of power. Poor Mr. Kangaroo did not sign up for this many surprises, one after another. Since the sea and land creatures had arrived, things could proceed as the Dark King planned. He swung his tendrils to cut the space open, freeing the spirit tide, reminiscent of how God Tree did it in the Misty Mountains. The 7 deep sea kings were the first to receive the investiture of strength from the dimensional rift. The sea beasts they brought also enjoyed the benefits of the golden rain. Ziyu and the Dark King might have used the same method to siphon the spirit tide's power, but the rift that the Dark King opened was several times bigger than God Tree's. It had been a week since the 2 foremost forces of nature initiated the spirit tide in advance. A shocking change was starting to happen in the outside world. Time could not pass any slower. Other than the Misty Mountains and the coast of Australia, the spirit tide had started to erupt worldwide. In every corner of the world, dimensional cracks were appearing at random spots one after another, revealing the void that housed infinite amounts of spirit power. 9 colored spirit lights even shone down on some human cities, raining down the super drug for everyone to absorb. Some spots had bigger and more intense dimensional rifts than the rest. For example, a kilometer-long crack appeared above one of the prosperous human cities. Before the defense force and the citizens could process its appearance, a beast tide larger than anyone had ever seen launched an attack. There were also accounts of a giant bear, as tall as a hill, rising from the ground and walking through a metropolis. All these events deeply affected the mental states of humans and beasts. The cities, the wilds, nothing was spared. If cracks of spirit power appeared, a bloody massacre would surely follow. Even the big shots and nation leaders in high positions had lost control over the populace. Countless humans, drunk on their newfound power, had gone rogue. The entire planet has plunged into a state of unprecedented chaos on a global scale. A massive crack had appeared near one of the Federation's government buildings. The nation's head watched it in all its horror and glory. He knew what the appearance of this thing meant. Hua Xia Federation's Dark Assembly had also started to move, with Xi Yaoqing's butler at the helm of the operation. They laid waste to any beast that dared to siphon spirit power from the crack they had just taken over by force. On the other side of the world, a guy called the Bishop had used this worldwide event to gain the adoration and worship of the masses. Directly above his church, one massive crack of spirit tide had appeared, giving his little holy spectacle a lot more mystique and authority. The people were thoroughly entranced by his seemingly godlike feat of allegedly triggering the miracle of the crack. The 10 Nations Alliance was also preparing for the inevitable war. Baldy, who had signed a contract with the Misty Mountains a few years ago, lucked out and spotted an unclaimed crack, swiftly tasking his men to lock down the region. Back in the Misty Mountain, the simple crack that the God Tree opened was starting to splinter into a more enormous rift. The cracks in the skies were increasing in number too. This was the actual start of the third spirit tide eruption throughout the planet. He also noticed that something odd was happening on the ground. Maybe he was just imagining things, but it certainly felt like the whole planet was starting to expand. If that's the case, Yuziu imagined the scary possibility that Earth itself was undergoing its own evolution. It looked like things had settled down on the coast of Australia. One of the 7 deep sea kings, the Black Dragon, left the golden reign of power to head somewhere else. He was so focused on arriving at his desired destination that it was downright terrifying. The draconic beast was gunning for one of the prosperous human cities, solely for revenge. People, clueless about what was going to happen to them, looked up into the skies to see a black cordycean dragon making its way to their position. Black Dragon's choice for nuclear target practice was the 10 Nations Alliance, where the people were more concerned about getting a good video of their destruction than fleeing for their lives. The dragon beam that almost killed humanity's strongest before was headed for the high-rise infrastructures without a fuss. Those psycho citizens did not take their eyes off their phone screens as their flesh and bones were vaporized. Black Dragon watched his masterpiece of obliteration from afar, admiring his own work. It took quite a bit to release enough power to destroy an entire city in one shot, so he got a little winded. Kangaroo had come to terms with teaming up with the sea beasts, but he was concerned that they were giving the Black Dragon too much freedom. But the Dark King wasn't concerned about that. He believed that humans would be wiped out anyway. Yuziu also sensed what that violent Black Dragon was doing. That bastard was currently attacking the country, where Alicia and Lean Ziyi were. He could only hope that nothing happened to those girls. Godtree's perception had gotten unfathomably stronger lately. His spirit power had improved by leaps and bounds. He couldn't afford to wait any longer, so he decided that today would be the day that he reached the 5th order of transcendence. With the awakening of darkness, the world would inevitably go through drastic changes in every aspect. Delaying his breakthrough any longer could get him renounced by the world, and he couldn't afford that. Godtree uprooted his massive roots, shaking the area he considered his home. A massive influx of spirit power, the likes of which had never been seen before, nearly enveloped the entire mountain. It was coming down directly from the cosmos. The breakthrough was short, sweet, and nothing short of history-altering. Yuziu's core sprouted in a more humanoid shape. He opened his eyes with a newfound vitality and potency that could obliterate everything. Godtree's entire body was shining with a golden glow, running along his branches and roots. He had officially reached the 5th order of transcendence. I'm sure you're ready for the fights that are about to come. You had better like and subscribe so you won't miss it.